"Hey, is Marie going to cook for New Year's this time?" My mother-in-law's immediate reaction was a wave of hands in front of her face followed by laughter. "No way, that's impossible. My daughter-in-law couldn't cook to save her life. She's the hopeless housewife who can't even manage a New Year's feast. I handle all the cooking around here." Her laughter grated on my nerves. It wasn't a joke, nor just playful banter. It was a direct insult. I had finally had enough. It was time to stand up for myself. I'm Marie, 28 years old, married just last year. I'm a full-time housewife who actually enjoys cooking, even if my husband's taste is forgiving as long as it's edible. He's kind, and we live in a newly renovated large house with a spacious kitchen island I've always dreamed of. It should be the ideal life. But from the start of my marriage, there's been one problem. My mother-in-law. She fancies herself a culinary expert and sees me as a failure of a wife who can't cook. I could bear it if that's all she thought, but she's the type to make sure everyone hears about it. Just yesterday, she was loudly complaining to the neighbor's wife while I was hanging out laundry. My daughter-in-law can't even cook properly. Oh, it's terrible. I wonder what kind of education she had. My son is so unfortunate. I can't believe it, she exclaimed, her words like barbs that nearly snapped the clothespin in my hand. Enduring her criticisms of my cooking was one thing, but hearing her disparage my parents was intolerable. I held my parents in deep respect, having learned countless lessons from them. Yet my mother-in-law never bothered to understand or appreciate any of that. Instead, she chose to slander me daily. Today was no different. I could hear her sharp voice spreading gossip through the neighborhood. She doesn't even know how to season properly. If I don't cook, there's no flavor at all. Why did my son marry someone like her? The neighbors joined in, adding their own comments. Brad seems to have added tough to his plate. Why don't you teach her? I wish they would just stop, I muttered, my grip on the glass tightening until it cracked in my hand. In the evening when Gregory, my husband, arrived home, my mother-in-law was in the shower. Seeing an opportunity, I decided to share everything I had been holding back with him. Can't you do something about your mother? She's going around the neighborhood every day saying I can't cook. Can't you talk to her, Gregory? As I hung up the jacket he handed me, I opened up about my mother-in-law's behavior. Gregory isn't particularly fond of his mother, and he cares about me, so I expected him to defend me. I thought he would sympathize and say, that must be difficult. But his response was completely unexpected. Well, Mom has always been very particular about cooking, Gregory said, scratching his head and looking troubled. Particular about cooking, I almost blurted out. With all that heavy seasoning. I stared at Gregory in disbelief, but he remained serious. Come on, she's a good cook, right? Well, I don't really know much about good or bad cooking. Anyway, please get along with Mom. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? With that, Gregory left the room. Is this some kind of joke? That thought echoed in my mind. A good cook, a wife's duty. What does that even mean? A rush of frustration surged through me all at once. In truth, though I hate to admit it, my mother-in-law's cooking isn't exactly delicious. She's taken charge of all the cooking for the past year to keep me from doing it, but I've never found it enjoyable. She firmly believes that more seasoning equals better taste. Gregory, raised on that flavor, always finishes his meals without complaint, but I struggle to eat it every day. Consuming such heavily seasoned food isn't good for my health, and I worry it might even dull my taste buds. I managed to finish it somehow, afraid of the repercussions if I left any on my plate. Alone in the quiet of our bedroom, I let out a heavy sigh. The shock wasn't that Gregory didn't criticize his mother's cooking. It's a wife's duty, huh? It was that he didn't take my feelings seriously in moments like this. I longed for the taste of my parents' home cooking. As the year-end approached, the anticipation grew. It would be my first New Year since marrying into this household. It's customary for relatives to gather and enjoy a feast prepared by my mother-in-law. When Gregory mentioned this, I couldn't help but silently question, really? But outwardly, I just replied with an "oh." The relatives who come every year to savor my mother-in-law's cooking must be accustomed to it by now, but I couldn't shake the feeling of sympathy for them. Despite my mother-in-law's criticism of my bland taste and culinary skills, I have confidence in my cooking abilities, instilled in me by my parents. I yearned to cook for everyone and perhaps refine Gregory's palate. With determination, I braced myself to broach the subject with my mother-in-law, knowing it was a long shot. Mother-in-law, regarding the New Year's celebration feast. Here's the plan. I called out to her as she energetically pulled out large plates and pots in the kitchen, I'll help too. But when my mother-in-law turned around, her expression already signaled refusal. Marie, you can't even cook properly, so how can you prepare food for the New Year's celebration? You know that not just our family, but all the relatives will be here, right? That's why I'm saying this. I'm married into this family. It's my duty as a wife to. I argued desperately, but my mother-in-law simply shook her head. No, no. Do you want to create an awkward atmosphere right at the beginning of the new year? Everyone comes for my cooking. We can't disappoint them. If you understand, please don't interfere. I could only suppress my frustration as I watched her back. The new year arrived, and relatives began to gather. There were about 20 of them, more than I had anticipated. Many I hadn't seen since the wedding. Marie, Happy New Year. It's been a while. Are you settling into married life? I greeted each relative warmly, ushering them into the spacious dining room that had initially amazed me upon moving in. The unusually large dining room seemed perfectly suited for such gatherings. Inside, my mother-in-law was already engaged in conversation with arriving relatives. Then, one of them asked, "By the way, is Marie preparing the feast this year?" My mother-in-law's immediate response was to wave her hands in front of her face and laugh. "That's impossible. My daughter-in-law can't cook at all. She's a hopeless housewife who can't even manage a New Year's feast. I handle all the cooking around here," she declared with an unpleasant laugh. It wasn't a jest or a casual remark. It felt like a direct insult aimed at me. I had finally reached my breaking point. "Mother-in-law, please let me prepare the New Year's feast this time. If it doesn't turn out well, you can always make a palate-cleansing dish," I suggested, breaking the tense silence that followed. After a moment, the room began to buzz with murmurs from the relatives. "Well, I certainly don't want a disappointing meal, but they say practice makes perfect, right? All right, fine. If it doesn't work out, Frida can step in." My mother-in-law finally relented, sensing the tide of opinion among the relatives shifting towards giving me a chance. "Very well then, Marie, you can take the reins this year." Her words carried a hint of reluctance. "But remember, I could always step in. Ladies and gentlemen, indulge this hopeless housewife's whims for once." Oh, I have plenty to say about this. My heart swelled with pride at the opportunity to showcase my cooking skills in front of everyone. It was time to turn the tables. All that remained was to give it my best shot. The meal turned out perfectly. As the beautifully arranged feast sat on the large platter, exclamations of admiration filled the room from our relatives. "Wow, it looks delicious. Well done, Marie. This isn't something just anyone could pull off." Amidst such praise, my mother-in-law, who had returned from shopping for the palate-cleansing dish, glanced at my spread. "It looks all right, I suppose, but it's probably bland." She emphasized the word probably, clearly reluctant to give credit. Then she added pointedly, "Well, I'd better get started on the palate-cleansing dish," and hurried into the kitchen. Disregarding her, I busied myself distributing paper plates and forks to the relatives. "Please, everyone, enjoy." Even as my mother-in-law headed towards the kitchen, her attention remained fixed on us. The relatives, in turn, accepted the food and sampled it. "This is," someone murmured, their voice quivering. My mother-in-law chuckled with apparent satisfaction. "See, I told you. This is why she's the incompetent daughter-in-law. Everyone, you don't need to force yourselves to eat. I'll prepare the palate-cleansing dish right away." Her tone was triumphant, but it was swiftly drowned out by sounds of delight. "This is the first time. I've never tasted New Year's food this delicious. It's restaurant quality. It's even better, like a meal from a fancy hotel." "Marie, where did you learn to cook like this?" My mother-in-law stood amidst the lively crowd, stunned into silence. With everyone's attention fixed on me and no one paying heed to my mother-in-law, I made up my mind to reveal the truth to everyone. My family owns a renowned French restaurant celebrated for its authentic cuisine, even recognized in the Michelin Guide. My father, now the fifth generation overseeing all culinary operations, and my mother, from a lineage of chefs, wholeheartedly supports him. Growing up, I absorbed the art of cooking by observing my parents. By the time I reached upper elementary school, I was earnestly learning from them. Though my brother is poised to inherit the restaurant, and despite my new life after marriage, the culinary knowledge passed down from my parents remains a source of pride within me. That's why I couldn't tolerate my mother-in-law's dismissive remarks and actions undermining my culinary skills. Denying my cooking is tantamount to denying my parents and the restaurant that has been our family's legacy for generations. I did mention this before we got married. Mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, often dismissive and condescending, seemed to view me merely as the daughter of a small countryside restaurant. And Gregory, indifferent to food, probably couldn't discern the difference between a family-run establishment and authentic French cuisine. I sometimes wonder why I married into this family, I muttered to myself. When I turned to the voice calling me, several pairs of eyes met mine, hesitant yet expectant. Can we have seconds? I want more too. Despite the generous portions of the feast I had prepared, it had been completely devoured. Suddenly, a wave of happiness washed over me, and I could feel tears welling up. Receiving praise for my cooking should have felt routine, something I'd known before I got married. Yet over the past year, I seem to have forgotten that sensation entirely. Yes, I'll prepare more right away. With determination, I hurried out of the room, passing by my motionless mother-in-law. Come to think of it, she had bought some ingredients. Regardless, I was determined to serve these guests to the best of my abilities. Mother-in-law, I'll use these ingredients, okay? I announced, but received no reply. The groceries remained untouched in the kitchen. As I reached to inspect the contents of the supermarket bag, someone entered the kitchen. Could you teach us how to cook too? I glanced up to find 5 women standing before me in a line. Their ages spanned from around mine to about my mother-in-law's, but all their eyes gleamed with the same eager curiosity. The food was amazing. We'd love to learn from you. Looking back, those words must have stirred something within me. Teaching cooking had never crossed my mind before. But seeing their admiration and realizing I could make a difference, I felt a newfound desire to share my knowledge as much as possible. That's what went through my mind. With a smile, I gladly agreed, and the room erupted with excitement. Everyone discussed how they would impress their husbands by improving their cooking skills, and so the spontaneous cooking class commenced. Observing us intently from afar, my mother-in-law silently tidied up, and when the dishes were finished, they were met with even more praise. I must admit, Frida's cooking tends to be a bit salty for my liking. Marie's dishes are delicate and refined, truly professional French cuisine. Mila beamed with joy at the recognition and applause from everyone. I felt a bit uneasy around my mother-in-law and offered a faint smile, but she remained focused on cleaning up without interruption. Just as I pondered how to break the tension, Gregory delivered the decisive statement. I actually prefer Marie's cooking. Mom's strong flavors make me concerned about salt and health. Going forward, Marie should handle the cooking regularly. With those words, my mother-in-law appeared to be completely taken aback, and before long, she quietly withdrew to her room. Afterward, news of my cooking abilities spread among the relatives, and soon I began receiving requests to teach cooking classes. Initially hesitant, I recalled the joy of the impromptu New Year's cooking session and decided to accept, realizing people valued my culinary skills. Through word of mouth, my reputation grew rapidly, and I found myself featured in the media as a housewife renowned for cooking authentic French cuisine. Now, requests for my teaching come from across the country. Life is unpredictable, and this unexpected journey even led to a feature about me in a cooking magazine where I spoke with my father. As for my mother-in-law, who once spread rumors in the neighborhood about my cooking abilities, she ceased commenting on culinary matters altogether after that day. Gradually, she stopped cooking altogether, leaving me with full authority over meals in our home. Despite the busyness, we now live together peacefully.
I've been wanting to say this, but I don't like anything about you. From now on, we'll live just as a family, so please leave this house. Don't get involved with us anymore. When I confronted my daughter-in-law, who had been neglecting her parenting duties, she openly expressed her anger. The daughter-in-law angrily retorted and stormed out of the living room. Understood. However, the house and everything else are in my name. So let's change that. If cutting ties with you means that, then yes, immediately. The daughter-in-law, who had wished to sever ties with me, happily accepted her words, unaware of the reality. She did not realize that this change of ownership would soon lead her to experience her own hell. This all happened before my grandchild was born. My name is Susan Morris. I am a certified public accountant and a career-driven woman. My family consists of just my son. As for my husband, He passed away from illness soon after our son, Matt, was born. He was a man of strong morals and conviction, and I adored him. When he died, I felt so alone that I even thought about following him in death. However, the one treasure he left me, my son Matt, gave me a reason to live. He was like the sun, giving me a reason to protect and fight. He didn't do anything special. But it was his tears and his efforts to reach out to me that kept me going all these years. Now, my son is a working adult. After studying hard, he landed a job at a major company, making any mother proud of his growth. When Matt was 26, he married his longtime girlfriend, Gina. They moved into a new house. And he started talking about wanting me to move in with them. Won't I be in the way of the newlyweds if I live with you? When Gina and Matt came to our house, we talked over a family dinner. And Gina shook her head at my question. Not at all. I was the one who asked Matt if we could live with you, Susan. Gina, you really are a good person. Matt doesn't deserve you. Hey, Mom. Don't say unnecessary things. Moved by her sincere words, I was impressed. Gina, 6 years older than my son, was assertive and straightforward. But she was also caring and affable. She was positive about living together. And I had no worries about moving in with the young couple. At first, our household was harmonious, and there were no problems. However, that changed dramatically soon after we started living together. When Gina became pregnant. The whole family was delighted at that time. Due to her condition, Gina quit her part-time job and took on the role of a full-time homemaker. My son continued to work hard, and I supported them while still working myself. Finally, the grandchild was born, and we were all set to push forward together. That was when Matt's company, eager to globalize, established an overseas branch, requiring him to support it for several years. This timing for the overseas assignment made Matt terribly lonely. I want to stay in America. I still want to live with this child. He lamented as he left for abroad, and the three of us remained behind. Colleagues asked me, "Aren't you worried about living with just your daughter-in-law?" But I had no such concerns. With such a kind daughter-in-law and a cute grandchild, I felt I could keep going. Little did I know I would later regret this comfort. During her pregnancy, Gina suffered severe morning sickness and was unable to do any household chores. Fortunately, I lived with them, so I took on all the housework. However, that may have been a mistake. Even after the grandchild was born, Gina did not take care of the house at all. Moreover, there were many days when she would neglect the grandchild and go out to play. Unable to watch this any longer, I called her out to discuss the matter. "Gina, you've had a child, you know? Do you have any awareness as a mother?" That day, as Gina was about to leave the house and leave the grandchild with me, I stopped her at the entrance and brought her to the living room to try to talk. "When you're not here, I'm looking after the child all the time. Yet, you won't even let me take a break?" "A break? You go out almost every night." "I'm not a maid or a babysitter, you know? I know that. But it's depressing to hear nothing but crying all the time. Can't I have a little freedom?" Gina said this with a laugh, which honestly irritated me. However, becoming emotional could further provoke her. It would be disastrous if she abandoned her parental duties. I had no face to show my son if I left everything to her. Things could not continue this way. I took a deep breath to calm myself, choosing my words carefully to make sure they reached her. "Could you at least reduce how often you go out? I have work too. It's a problem if you go out every day. I tried to plead with her in the most humble way possible. But she started laughing off my request. Work. You're not doing anything serious, so please don't pretend it's hard. I'm tired from parenting. Since I'm living here, please be considerate. Later, it became clear that she did not understand my job. I had explained it at the time of the marriage. But she probably didn't grasp what being a certified public accountant entails. She might have thought it was just some clerical job that anyone could do. Her disdain became apparent during our conversation. Basically, the reason you can live here is thanks to Matt. So please try a bit harder. I don't have time to work. As if she was the one earning, her words made my eyebrows twitch. Our lifestyle was sustained by my son's income, or so she thought. All the living expenses earned by my son's income went into savings for the grandchild. Because I had refused to accept it. The day before he went abroad, my son and I had discussed it. I'll cover your living expenses too, Mom. Although my son had offered this, I refused out of gratitude for just living together. I took on all expenses, including the mortgage and necessary living costs. I was saving my son's money for the grandchild. However, telling Gina this might make her feel obliged. I had asked my son to keep this between us. So, to Gina, I must have seemed like a parasite. Living off my son without contributing anything to the household. Her attitude toward me grew increasingly arrogant day by day. As this situation continued, and my grandchild turned 3, I entered my 50s and began to feel my body decline. If this lifestyle continued, I might reach my limit. I was worried about what to do. When I heard that my son might be ending his overseas assignment soon. We'll see each other soon. Hang in there, Dad's working hard. During our daily video calls, my son would talk to the grandchild. The grandchild's growth was very slow, and at that time, he still had difficulty speaking. However, he would say words like Dada and express his love through gestures, which both my son and I found adorable. But beside me, Gina seemed disinterested, fiddling with her phone. It was hard to discuss this with Matt since he was overseas. And dealing with Gina had become a daily challenge. Then, an incident occurred. That day, I returned home late, too late to prepare dinner. Hoping against hope that Gina had managed something. I parked the car and immediately heard my grandchild's cries from outside. Rushing inside, I found laundry left undone. My grandchild, whose diaper had not been changed, was scratching his bottom and crying out for a change. Where was Gina? Looking around, I caught sight of her sleeping carelessly on the living room sofa. I couldn't believe she was sleeping while my grandchild cried so desperately. In contrast to the crying child, Gina was snoring loudly, sleeping soundly. Exhausted from work and daily stress, I decided to wake her up forcefully. Wake up! What are you doing? TCH, so noisy. Stop yelling right by my ear. Perhaps it was the way I removed the blanket she was under that made her click her tongue. Waking up cranky, Gina slowly sat up, scratching her hair and looking lethargic. Which only irritated me further, increasing my frustration. How can you sleep so carelessly when the child is crying? I'm tired too. Don't yell at me when I've just woken up. I can hear you, okay? Tired? What are you tired from? You don't do anything around the house. I am taking care of the child. Why do you act so high and mighty when you don't know anything? Gina's mood was at its worst, and she retorted, glaring at me as she spoke. Her attitude was unforgivable, and I clenched my fists in anger. I was about to retort further when my grandchild tugged at my pants, indicating that his diaper was uncomfortable. Remembering my role, I momentarily left Gina alone and attended to my grandchild. Sorry, I know it's itchy. I'll change it right now. While changing the diaper with a gentle tone, far different from how I spoke to Gina, I noticed that my grandchild continued to cry even after being cleaned. Wondering why, I remembered Gina had been asleep. Could it be that you haven't eaten either? Though I wasn't sure if my grandchild could understand, I asked anyway. Seemingly frustrated by his inability to speak, his crying didn't subside. But he gestured towards his stomach to show he was hungry. Furious over this unacceptable situation but holding back my anger, I quickly prepared some food. Once he began eating, my grandchild laughed innocently while watching TV and eating. Finally, I could relax. After settling down, I slumped over the table, utterly exhausted. Why should I have to endure this? It was all because she refused to take care of the house or the child properly. My forgotten anger resurfaced, exacerbated by Gina's voice overhead. Is this all for dinner tonight? It doesn't have any meat. Displeased by the fish-based dinner, Gina complained. Something inside me snapped, and I sternly told her to sit down. Sit down, we need to talk. Is this going to take long? I was about to go out. Just sit down. My raised voice startled Gina, visibly making her jump. Fortunately, my grandchild was too engrossed in the TV to notice our situation. Reluctantly sitting down amid complaints, Gina was met with my stern words. I'm not saying you can't go out or must always stay home. But lately, you've been far too indifferent towards the child. Indifferent? That's an exaggeration. I'm not ignoring him, and today I was just tired and took a nap. Tired from napping. It's because you keep going out at night that you don't have the energy during the day. Why do I have to be scolded just for sleeping a little? Do you know what time it is? It's already 9 p.m. This isn't just a nap. Well, I was asleep, what can I do about it? Initially, Gina listened quietly, but she gradually became irritated. Her tone shifted, and she glared at me defiantly. Do you even realize you're a mother? This child is your son, you know? Enough already. Reaching her limit, Gina stood up abruptly, grabbed my things, and thrust them at me while shouting insults. I've been wanting to say this, but I don't like anything about you. From now on, we'll live just as a family, so please leave this house. Don't get involved with us anymore. With that, Gina slammed the living room door and left. The noise startled my grandchild, who turned anxiously towards the door. Mama. Feeling lost without his mother, my grandchild walked over to me, looking up as if asking where his mother had gone. My heart ached at his look, and I couldn't hold back my tears as I hugged him. Why had it come to this? I thought I could support this home even without Matt. Now, I might have to leave this child with such a parent. What should I do? The pain and helplessness overwhelmed me, and I let the tears flow. Noticing my distress, my grandchild looked up worriedly and gently wiped my tears. Grandma, there. With uncertain words, he wiped my tears and patted my head as if to comfort me. His earnest kindness was a small solace, but my tears flowed even more. Still, it's crucial that he lives a happy life. I can't leave him with such an unreliable person. I must protect him. Resolved, I decided to take steps I had hesitated on until now. The next day, I called in to take a day off from work and arranged to speak with Gina again. What is it? If it's about yesterday, I've had enough. Can you please just leave soon? Clearly loathing even speaking to me. Gina sighed heavily the moment she was called, and immediately started with provocative words as she sat down. Understood. As you wish, I will leave. Finally realized you're a nuisance, huh? It must have been unexpected for her that I accepted her words without argument. Gina looked momentarily surprised, then her expression faded into a sneer. However, the house and everything are in my name, so let's change that. Gladly. If that means cutting ties with you, let's do it right away. As a condition for leaving the house, I proposed a change of ownership. Unaware of the implications, Gina agreed eagerly with a cheerful nod. A smile unwittingly crossed my face as I heard her response. She was oblivious to the fact that this change of ownership would soon lead her into a dire situation. Taking the unsuspecting Gina, we went from the city office to insurance and the house mortgage, changing everything that was in my name to hers. Just as we completed all the changes, Matt returned home at the perfect time. Matt. Gina was surprised to see her husband. Naturally, as I had told her it would be a while before Matt returned to America. It's been a while, Gina. Why are you here, Matt? What about the overseas branch? Didn't I tell you? I was about to return to America soon. Actually, I had confessed everything to Matt last night. His return was supposed to be later. But I was at my wit's end. I decided to give up pretending everything was okay and told him everything. Honestly, I thought even telling Matt might not help. But his boss at the overseas branch is a very kind person. After hearing about the troubles at home, he arranged everything from flights to bring him back immediately. Thanks to that, Matt returned to America while I was buying time with the name change. Before I could fully leave this house, we managed to meet face to face. Gina, you've really done some terrible things to my mother and me. Gina must have realized from just one look that Matt was furious. Her body trembled noticeably as she looked up at him, clearly frightened. What terrible things? I haven't done anything to your mother. Don't play dumb. I've heard all about it. Gina still tried to deceive her way out even now. A futile resistance. As I thought this, Matt seemed to speak on my behalf, looking down at her with a broad smile. Standing tall with his arms crossed, Matt had an imposing presence. It's not like that. Your mother doesn't contribute financially to the house but keeps nagging. I just lost my temper because I'm tired from taking care of the child. It was just a slip of the tongue. Trying to get through this situation, Gina, probably terrified of Matt. Let slip words she would probably regret, and by the time she finished, I was thoroughly exasperated. Do you even realize on whose account our household is sustained? After hearing Gina's story, Matt continued with a scoff, looking down on her as if he found her ignorance amusing. Why are you laughing at me? Gina looked bewildered, not understanding why she was being laughed at, and alternated her gaze between Matt and me. Our living expenses were covered by my mother's income. What do you mean? I entrusted all my earnings to my mother to save for this child. As Matt began to reveal the course of events, Gina, hearing it for the first time, was visibly shaken. She probably had never imagined that she had been supported by me all this time. It was as if her face showed she realized she had committed a terrible mistake. Why do you think you had to change everything into your name today? Huh? Confused by Matt's sudden question, the situation only intensified as he pressed her further. You thought you succeeded in getting my mother to leave, didn't you? Hit with the truth, Gina found no words to return. Perhaps her reaction was also amusing, as Matt approached her with a malicious grin. The person who's been patiently keeping our home together wouldn't just leave. Because of your harassment. But then why? It was my instruction. Gina snapped back at his words, and Matt cut her off. What? Why would you do something like that? Because, if I didn't make changing the name a condition for leaving, you might not have acted so readily. Why would we need to change the name? Just drive out your mother, and we three can live here. Perhaps Gina still believed Matt was on her side. Both Matt and I were taken aback by her statement. And perhaps it was just too absurd for Matt, who burst into laughter, holding his stomach. Come on, jokes should only be about your face. There's no way we'd continue living with you after driving my mother out. So, then why change the ownership to me? To get a divorce, of course. With that, Matt handed her the divorce papers. The papers practically slapped her face, causing her to stagger back in shock. Barely managing to stand her ground. After hearing all this, there's no way I can leave this child and my mother in your care. Nor is it remotely possible for me to continue as your husband. Wait, this is too unreasonable. Unreasonable? You're the one to talk. Look back at what you've done to my mother. Matt's anger erupted with the word unreasonable. He yelled at her, seemingly venting not only his anger but mine as well. Trusting you even slightly to take care of my mother and child was my mistake. From now on, I'll protect them. Today marks the end for us. Even if we divorce, the money saved is mine. Realizing that begging further was futile, Gina shifted her strategy to cling to money. As discussions of divorce and asset division began, she demanded Matt's money. Disgusted by her behavior, I sighed deeply. And do you know why I was paying the living expenses? There's another reason I did it. Why did I cover the living expenses and save Matt's money in such a way? Huh? All the accounts under our grandchild's name were created by me. What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying. Uncomprehending, Gina responded as if she couldn't grasp the meaning. In divorce proceedings, savings in a child's name can sometimes be considered part of the marital assets. To prevent this, I received the living expenses from Matt. And I saved it as a gift for our grandchild. I did this so that if something happened between us and we divorced, the grandchild's savings wouldn't end up being yours. And neither would Matt's past savings go to you. So, the money that would go to you is very limited. So that's it. I had not prepared for divorce per se. But the precautions I had taken proved incredibly useful. I could only praise myself for my foresight. Gina, who had fallen right into my trap, now crumbled to the floor in despair, her face reflecting the end of her world. Too bad. You married Matt for the money, didn't you? As Gina hung her head in defeat, Matt wasn't about to let her off easy. So, that's not it? Huh? No, that's not it. But I've heard everything from your nightly playmate, your affair partner. Lies? Gina seemed to say, realizing that she was exposed to that extent. I sighed in exasperation. You didn't think I'd suspect why you were going out every night? I thoroughly investigated and captured solid evidence. If you want, the affair partner even confessed. Saying this, I showed her a voice recorder and several photos of her entering a hotel. And Gina, perhaps resigning herself to the reality, found herself unable to retort. It seems that after marrying Matt, she had reconnected with an old boyfriend. She started an affair with him and apparently had been giving him money. But unfortunately for you, all your schemes fell through. My salary isn't even close to what my mom earns. Your mother's job is just clerical, right? How could she possibly earn more than you, Matt? The income of a certified public accountant increases the more they advance in their career. If we're talking about mom's current income, it's around $100,000, isn't it? $100,000? Hearing about my income, Gina was visibly shocked. Regret your ignorance. My mom isn't someone you can look down on like that. But if I try. Gina. As Gina was about to retort with vehemence towards Matt, I couldn't stand watching her any longer and intervened between them. No matter how much you cry and wail, you can't overturn the facts anymore. Stop displaying such disgraceful behavior. It's just unsightly. After that, she bit her lower lip in frustration. Then she began pleading with Matt, crying not to divorce her. Perhaps thinking about how difficult it would be to find a job and support herself at 35 with no job experience. Desperately clinging to a straw, she cried to Matt. However, my family-oriented son would not allow that, declaring firmly, "I'll make sure you face the consequences." He refused her pleas and, as promised, filed for divorce mediation. Moreover, he went through with suing her for all the verbal abuse and neglect she had directed at our grandchild. Thanks to that, her life became a debt hell. With the house mortgage to repay, it seemed she had no choice but to declare bankruptcy. What became of her after that? I do not know, but rumors say she is now living on social welfare. Time has passed since then, and I am now 76 years old, living with my son and grandchild. This spring, my grandchild announced he was getting married. She's like Grandma, kind and strong-willed, he told me with a shy smile, showing how well he has grown. Watching him, I cried with my son, continuing to wish for their happiness. You old folks can live in a nursing home. Suddenly appearing at the new property my husband and I had bought. Hillary, our eldest son's wife, said this as she started moving in her belongings, dismissing us with a wave of her hand. I was furious, but a whisper from my husband brought me back to my senses. We decided to leave as Hillary wished. So, please make yourself comfortable. With those words, we left the house. We'll make sure she regrets this. A mere apology won't be enough to earn our forgiveness. My name is Grace Simpson. I'm 60 years old. I have a husband, Robert, who is 3 years older than me, and a son, Ted. We struggled to conceive for many years. Eventually, we started fertility treatments and were blessed with our long-awaited son. We might have spoiled him a bit too much. We gave him everything he wanted and allowed him to do everything he desired. Back then, we loved our son so much it was unbearable. However, that might not have been for the best. As he grew up, he increasingly disliked being instructed by others, and if he was in a bad mood, he would quit things halfway through. Both my husband and I regretted that perhaps we hadn't raised him well. As time went by, our conversations with our son became fewer and farther between. He became engrossed in online games from his middle school days, hardly studied, and just managed to get into a local high school. During high school, he continued to stay in his room, absorbed in online gaming. When it came time to think about his future, he didn't consider it at all and neither continued his studies nor found employment, simply graduating from high school. Seeing his situation, I decided to have him work at the real estate company run by my husband. Though it was just my husband, myself, and my sister working there, and it was a small company. We had never struggled financially and thought we could accommodate our son without issue. Initially, Ted tried to learn his job seriously. But he struggled with customer service and property showings, often leading to complaints. He quickly lost his motivation and began to spend his time idly playing with his smartphone or zoning out at the office. When my husband lost patience and scolded him, Ted snapped back and stopped coming to work altogether. Eventually, Ted only lasted 3 months at work, leaving my husband and me at our wits' end. Afterwards, he spent about 2 years living as a recluse at home, but one day, he suddenly started working part-time at a bar. My husband and I were worried about what he planned to do next. But even if it was just a part-time job, we were glad to see him working and supported him from behind the scenes. However, whenever we asked about his work, he would only reply with yeah or ah, never more than one word. As we left for work early in the morning and he would wake up just before noon, we hardly ever saw each other. When we returned, he would be out at his part-time job, so there was hardly any family time. Still, it seemed like he was somehow managing to keep his job. Then, one afternoon, about 5 years later, Ted unusually initiated a conversation. "Dad, Mom, you're off from work tomorrow, right?" "Yes, we are off, but what's up?" "Actually, I'm getting married. It's sudden, but they're coming over tomorrow." His words were completely unexpected, and I was at a loss for words. Ted was still young and a part-timer. Honestly, I was worried if he could really handle marriage in his current state. "It's okay. You'll see when you meet them." Yet, speaking shyly, Ted had a happy smile. It was the first time I had seen him smile like this, and as a parent, I genuinely felt supportive. "Is that so? Ted is finally getting married. I'm looking forward to tomorrow," my husband said with a broad smile, kindly speaking to him. I also told my son, "Ted, that's great. I'll make a feast for tomorrow, so wait for it." As I said that, Ted blushed slightly but nodded slightly. "Then, see you tomorrow. I'm off to work now." My husband and I watched him leave with a smile. What should we prepare for tomorrow's feast? What kind of person is his fiancé? My husband and I spent that day talking a lot about our son. The next day, fully prepared, we waited for our son and his guests, and around 6 p.m., we heard the front door open. A bit nervous, I headed to the entrance. First impressions are important. I had to greet them properly. However, when I saw the woman who was to be Ted's fiancée, I froze before I could speak. "Ah, hello. Sorry for intruding." Before I could speak, she entered boldly into the house, with Ted following her with a smile. I hurried after them. But even my husband looked surprised when he saw them in the living room. The woman Ted brought home didn't seem like she was here for a marriage introduction. Her glaringly blonde hair, miniskirt, and overly bold makeup were surprising. I shouldn't judge based on appearances since Ted chose her. Yet, I couldn't help but feel bewildered by her appearance today of all days. It seemed my husband felt the same, but he still spoke to her in his usual gentle manner. "Nice to meet you. I'm Ted's father. I hear you work together. Thank you for looking after him." My husband greeted, but she didn't look at him at all and started introducing herself. "Hello. I'm Hillary. Nice to meet you." After introducing herself as Hillary, she took out her smartphone from her pocket and stared at the screen. To be honest, the first impression wasn't great. But I switched gears and brought out the food from the kitchen, setting it on the table. "Hillary, nice to meet you. I'm Ted's mother. Thank you for coming today. I've prepared some sushi, so let's eat together. As I said that, she made a visibly displeased face. Ugh, I can't eat sushi. Ted, didn't I tell you before? I can't eat raw food. Did you mention that? Sorry, just eat what you can then. While Ted was apologizing and trying to keep her happy, her anger didn't subside. No way. I can't believe you'd serve something I can't eat. Is this some kind of harassment? Forget it, I'm going home. Raising her voice like a small child, she grabbed her belongings and stormed out of the living room. Ted hurried after her, but my husband and I just watched in dismay. Even after a while, they didn't return. The sushi ordered for 4 remained untouched. And the day's marriage introduction ended there. I honestly expressed my feelings to my husband. I'm worried. Can Ted really make a marriage work with her? Shouldn't we persuade him to rethink this? No, Ted is 25 years old. He should be able to handle his choice of a spouse himself. There's no need for us to say anything. I understand that what my husband says makes sense. Still, I couldn't shake my feelings of anxiety. The next morning, it seemed that Ted had not returned home. Worried, I called him and heard a carefree voice over the phone. Hello, Mom? Sorry for surprising you yesterday. I've talked things through and made up with Hillary, so don't worry. Is that so? Where are you now? I'm at Hillary's apartment. Also, I meant to say yesterday. We're going to submit our marriage registration before the wedding. What? We thought we'd have a proper talk before registering. Anyway, I'm hanging up now. The call was abruptly ended, and without the courage to call back, I was left alone in confusion. Soon after, I relayed the phone call to my husband, who suggested we try trusting the woman Ted had chosen. He must have his own thoughts, yet he is trying to trust our son. I decided, along with my husband, to trust them as well. 3 days later, Ted returned home, but there was no mention of the marriage. However, a week later, Ted suddenly came to the office on the day James, who runs a construction firm nearby and has known us for a long time, was there. James had been asking to purchase a new property we had. And today he was here to finalize the contract. My husband was not present, but I was managing the situation alone. Hey, Ted. It's been such a long time. James? It's been a while. I heard from your mom that you're getting married. Congratulations. If you decide to build a house, make sure to consider our construction firm. Please pass that on to Grace. After saying that, James left the office. Then Ted immediately asked me, Mom, I overheard a bit of the conversation. Did you buy a new property? What are we going to do with our current house? And where am I supposed to live? Your father and I thought it might be nice to bravely move into a new home. We're not doing anything with the current house right away. That's fine then. Oh, I'm meeting Hillary here today to go submit our paperwork at the office. So, you're finally settling down. Thanks for letting me know. You'll be the head of the household now, so bear that in mind and do your best. I was slightly concerned by my son's remarks about possibly continuing to live at home after marriage. I patted his shoulder with a feeling of hope that they would work hard together as a couple. As I was about to return to work, I noticed that James had left his belongings on the chair where he had been sitting. James, you've left your stuff. Take care, I'll go deliver it. After telling Ted, I rushed out to catch James and bumped into Hillary. Oh, Hillary. If you're looking for Ted, he's inside the office. Take care, I have to step out, but we'll celebrate later. Thanks. Despite her curt attitude, I chose not to dwell on it. Ah, right. Hillary, could you please leave this envelope on the desk in the office? Sorry, and thank you. In my haste, I had carried not only James's forgotten items but also some work documents, which I handed to her. She took them silently without a word. Trusting her, I chased after James. Fortunately, I caught up with him quickly, handed over the forgotten items, and we ended up chatting for about an hour. By the time I returned to the office, Ted and Hillary had already left. I reported to my husband about the matter James had mentioned, and checked the contents of the envelope Hillary was supposed to have left on the desk. Inside the envelope were the property documents and 3 keys to the new house. However, there should have been 3 keys including a spare, but only 2 were present. No matter where I searched, the 3rd key could not be found. My husband had been out guiding a tour, and only my sister was there during that time. I asked if she knew anything about the key, but she did not. Wondering how to explain to my husband that I had immediately lost a key, I decided to also check with Hillary just in case, but the call did not connect. Ted did not answer his phone either. While I was searching everywhere, my husband returned to the office. After explaining what had happened, he helped me look for the key. We searched late into the night around the desk and throughout the office, but the key was nowhere to be found. We both felt dejected and reluctantly returned home. Are you sure there were 3 keys? Maybe there were only 2 after all? My husband asked curiously. When I received them, I checked everything, including the documents and keys. There were definitely 3 keys. Okay. I'll talk to James about the keys. For now, let's just move what we can according to plan. It was past 7 p.m. by then. Together, my husband and I moved only a few items into the new house, which was ready for immediate occupancy with utilities already set up, as we were prepared to start living there at any moment. I had made sure everything was ready. Then, despite having locked the front door, we heard the sound of it being tampered with. Puzzled, we went to the front door together, and before our eyes, the door opened. Hillary and several men and women were there, seemingly oblivious to our presence, beginning to move furniture and belongings inside. Confused by the situation, Hillary spoke to me sharply. Hey, what are you doing in this house? Trespassing. Don't enter without permission. Hillary, what are you doing here? Where did you get the keys? I asked her as calmly as possible, despite my surprise. Didn't you give me the keys? Ted told me you bought this house, didn't he? A couple over 60 shouldn't be making such extravagant purchases. With those words, my husband and I realized everything. Hillary must have stolen the keys from the envelope I had given her. I didn't give you the keys, I asked you to leave them on the desk. Stealing keys is theft, you know, and you're the ones trespassing. Ignoring my words, she and her companions roamed around the house at will, making a racket. It was impossible to have a proper conversation. Enough already. You don't need a new house like this. Why don't you just live modestly in the old one? Ted and I will put it to good use. You old folks can live in a nursing home. Hillary glared at me fiercely. I wasn't scared, but I couldn't believe this person was Ted's spouse. What kind of person are you? Ah, did you sell the current house or something? Sorry for you. I absolutely can't live with you. Hillary gestured dismissively with her hands, and her companions laughed loudly around us. It's a waste of time, so go away already. I was about to burst with anger, but a whisper from my husband brought me back to my senses. We decided to leave as Hillary wished. "All right, then enjoy yourselves." With those words, we left the house. We returned to our old home and laughed together with my husband. Isn't this a good opportunity? Let's see if what James said is true. Indeed, I'm looking forward to it. We decided to wait for the inevitable call from Hillary. We'll make sure she regrets her actions. A mere apology won't suffice. As expected, the next day Hillary contacted us. Her voice on the phone was different from any I had heard before. It trembled as if she was frightened. "Wait a minute. You knew about this house, didn't you? Is there a problem?" I almost laughed at Hillary's agitation but restrained myself and pretended to know nothing. "Don't play dumb. You wouldn't be calling if nothing was wrong. I couldn't sleep at all last night, my shoulders feel heavy. And I keep hearing strange noises from an empty room." "Oh, that must have been tough." "Stop it. You run a real estate business, can't you manage a house properly? Don't joke around. I'm going to sue you." She ranted incoherently, seemingly unaware of her own confusion. I sighed heavily and coldly responded to her. "In that case, we will sue you for stealing the keys. We never rented the house to you in the first place. It's a house we bought and plan to live in ourselves. You're the one who stole the keys and trespassed into our house, aren't you? And if there's any damage, you'll be paying for all the repairs." I conveyed these facts in a matter-of-fact tone. Hillary was momentarily flustered but still snapped back. "This house belongs to you, right? It's Ted's house. And Ted's house is my house too. Indeed, it is the house we bought, but we never said we were lending it to you, did we?" Unable to respond, Hillary finally ended the call. Later, my husband and I went to check the house. The lawn was torn up. And there were scratches on the walls and floors, with trash scattered around. We took photos of everything and immediately took action. Everything was prepared, and we summoned our son and his wife to the office. Ted seemed to have heard a distorted version of events from her. "Both of you, talking about suing Hillary and making her pay for the repairs sounds like a threat. What are you trying to do?" Initially, he was openly hostile, but as my husband calmly explained the situation, his expression turned pale. "That's not what I heard." "So, what did Hillary tell you?" Glancing at Hillary, Ted began to speak in a confused manner. "The other day, after we went to submit the marriage registration, Hillary told me that you bought the new house for us. I thought as much." Lately, Ted hadn't been coming home at all, and there had been no contact. If he had known the truth, he surely would have reached out to us for confirmation. I understood he was completely smitten with Hillary. But it was disappointing to see him so easily manipulated. "So, how do you plan to take responsibility?" My husband asked in a calm voice, filled with anger that made even me shiver. "I don't know why I should take responsibility. I was mentally cornered in that house. You should take responsibility for that." "Hillary, are you serious?" "Of course I'm serious. Don't make fun of me. This is why I hate stubborn old people. Seriously, it's so annoying. I expected to live in a decent house since Ted's parents run a real estate company. My life plans are ruined. What are you going to do about it?" This must be her true feelings. Hillary tried to lash out at me with bloodshot eyes. But my husband stepped in and shouted, changing his tone. "What are you saying? You're an adult. I won't allow you to hurt my wife any further." Bad news, this entire conversation has been recorded. We'll let the lawyer handle what comes next. Stay away from me and my wife for good. unable to withstand my husband's furious shout and presence. Hillary twisted her face in frustration and stormed out of the office alone. Ted did not follow her this time. Afterward, we consulted again with a lawyer introduced by James and decided to sue Hillary. However, it seemed she realized she had no chance of winning if it went to court. She apparently pleaded with her parents, who later came with her to apologize. Her parents were very apologetic, repeatedly expressing their sincere regret. But Hillary seemed unconvinced. Her father scolded Hillary, and she reluctantly apologized, though she did not seem repentant. Ultimately, her parents pleaded for a settlement, which we agreed to. They paid a suitable amount, and we decided to end the matter there. Ted divorced her soon after and came to apologize to us. Both of you, I'm really sorry. I should have understood Hillary better. As it seemed Ted had finally seen the truth, we didn't blame him. We hoped this incident would help him grow. So, is there something about that house? As the conversation settled, Ted asked what had happened with that property. My husband and I looked at each other and decided to tell him everything. Actually, during the construction of that house, a worker was seriously injured and passed away. Perhaps he had strong unfinished feelings. Several people who said they would buy the house eventually didn't because of paranormal phenomena. We thought we'd buy it to help James and maybe hold a purification ceremony. So, what Hillary said was true. Well, that's the thing. But strangely, when your mom and I lived there, we didn't experience any paranormal phenomena. It's probably because of our daily deeds. Hearing my husband's words, Ted and I couldn't help but laugh. Seeing Ted's smile, I finally felt relieved from the bottom of my heart. My husband and I are living in the newly purchased house. Although Ted is staying at his parents' house, he seems to be making an effort to learn household chores that he never did before. What surprised me most was that Ted said he wanted to take the university entrance exams. After this incident, I realized how childish and ignorant I was. It's late, but I want to start studying again. I'll keep working part-time and do my best. After I graduate from university, I'd like to work at Dad's company again. We naturally agreed without hesitation. Tears welled up in my husband's eyes when he heard Ted's words. A smile naturally appeared on my face as I recognized the renewed bond between us. Next month, you'll meet the 10th grandchild. As I looked over, I noticed her belly had grown, and Mandy was happily stroking it. The small room was crowded with 4 children and 9 grandchildren. I hadn't noticed how far along she was. What? I exclaimed, overwhelmed by surprise, joy, and a daunting unease all at once. Oh, my goodness. I haven't seen you for about a year, so I missed telling you. It's a boy. Live a long life, Grandma. Yes, I hope so. Everyone present rejoiced and celebrated the happy news. Amid the exchange of heartfelt words, I couldn't fully suppress my complex feelings. In fact, my eldest son, Scott, had been continuously taking money from me, and my savings were depleted. Daily life had become a struggle. I wished I could give Mandy a present for the baby, but I could no longer afford it. I never expected to feel so miserable at such a joyful occasion. I felt so pathetic that I might cry. Alone, I quietly left the room and went upstairs. As I did, Scott's slightly open door caught my eye. What state was his room in now? As I slowly opened the door, the mess inside was revealed. Why had it come to this? Standing there in shock, tears finally rolled down my cheeks. Then, I heard someone coming up the stairs heavily. Seeing who it was, various thoughts raced through my mind, leading to one inevitable conclusion I must avoid at all costs. In a moment of desperation, I jumped from the balcony. My name is Kathy Morris. I'm a widow in my 60s, having lost my husband several years ago. Even after the second and third anniversaries of his death, I remained downhearted. However, I decided I couldn't go on like this and started a part-time job at a supermarket on the recommendation of a close friend. Now, working there brings excitement to my days. Welcome. I enjoy making small talk with customers at the register. Today, the fish is cheap, I say, which immediately eases the atmosphere, especially with busy mothers. A man in work clothes, looking to be in his mid to late 30s with a sunburned face, reminds me of my son Scott. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Raising them was hard, but I managed to get all 4 through college. My second son and daughters have found wonderful partners and are now married, blessed with children and busy lives. Only Scott, my eldest, has no desire to marry and still lives with me. Perhaps because he is the eldest, he is very caring. He helps with things I don't understand, like internet and smartphone settings. He also likes to spend money on his hobbies. Hence, his salary and bonuses often vanish on fishing gear. I bought another new reel. He opens the package that arrived today, looking pleased, and gazes at the tools inside. It's fine to spend on hobbies, but are you saving properly? I am. I've even started some investment funds. I was relieved to learn that he was managing his finances well, contributing to household expenses. Are you going fishing at the seaside this weekend? Yes, I'll be going. His face and arms tanned from outdoor activities. It was clear he enjoyed spending days out with friends, healthy and happy. Just be careful not to fall into the sea. I know. Scott checked his new fishing gear with sparkling eyes. His demeanor was like a child treasuring his toys. Beside him, I glanced at my diary. The first Sunday of last month was my birthday. My married children and grandchildren came over for a birthday party, an annual tradition they insist on continuing, especially my youngest daughter, Mandy. It's only once a year, why not, Mom? She would say, rallying her siblings. This year, the grandchildren even performed a pop the balloon act. With 9 grandchildren, the house felt a bit cramped, but such gatherings were rare. Despite the occasional complaints, having a large family was a source of joy and happiness. After each birthday, I immediately looked forward to the next. At my age, I still look forward to birthdays. Silly me. I chuckled to myself, feeling at the peak of happiness at that moment. In the midst of these cherished days, the unexpected happened. It was an early spring day, still marked by cold rain. When I returned home from work, Scott was sitting in the dark living room, muttering to himself. Scott? What's wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. It's his fault. Sensing his distress, I quickly turned on the lights and made him hot cocoa. Under the bright light, Scott looked drenched and pale, a far cry from his usual energetic self. Over time, he revealed that he had been laid off. My boss tricked me. It was actually his mistake, but they blamed me. But can't you apologize and start over? It's no use. It was a big project, and they said it's irreversible. That's terrible. I can't trust anyone anymore. Hearing him sob, I couldn't reprimand him. It was the first time I had seen Scott so dejected, betrayed by a trusted supervisor. How could I possibly understand his feelings? I suggested that Scott take a warm bath for now. After that, he ate a little dinner and then quickly retreated to his bed in his room. It was a complete turnaround for him, who had always been positive about his hobbies and work. From the next day on, he mostly stayed shut in his room. Perhaps in shock, he spent his days listlessly without looking for a job, and he even stopped going fishing. In a corner of the living room, the empty boxes from when he bought his fishing gear were carelessly thrown away. Could it be that he would remain shut in forever? I never imagined that the active Scott could become a recluse. No way, that can't be. However, my fears were realized, and gradually he stopped coming out of his room. I tried calling out to him through his door, but all I got back were gruff words. I can't trust anyone anymore. I don't want to work. But, at least you should go outside a little. Leave me alone. After that, he stopped responding. During the time Scott was shut in, I continued to work part-time. Being at work was a relief. Chatting with my colleagues and having casual conversations with customers was healing. However, the time to clock out and return home was the most depressing. I walked home, shoulders slumped, feeling urgent and helpless about Scott's recovery. Each day, seeing the man in work clothes who came to buy lunch brought me an indescribable sadness. What should I do? I had never imagined that my own son, a grown adult, would become a recluse. Not knowing who to turn to, I was at a loss. I considered talking to his siblings, but I didn't want to worry them unnecessarily. They had their own families. It didn't seem right to burden them with Scott's issues. Scott, are you there? I tried to do something, so I called out to his door upstairs. Come on down and eat something at least. However, no matter how long I waited, there was no response. Today's dinner is lasagna. Hey. Just then, a dull thud sounded. Scott had hit the wall. Startled, I shivered and stared at the door. Maybe he wanted to be left alone. I didn't understand, but I must have upset him in some way. Scott, I'll leave the lasagna on the living room table. Warm it up and eat later, I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking, and then I went downstairs. I hoped that he would return to his old self. A few days later, on my day off, Scott came out of his room. His hair was unkempt, and he had grown a scruffy beard, giving his face an unclean look. Dressed in pajamas, he rummaged through the fridge and grabbed 3 cans of beer, then went back to his room. I wondered if he was drinking every day like this, and I knocked on his door during lunch and dinner. You need to eat something nutritious. Shut up. You don't understand how I feel. Don't just drink. Why don't you go fishing like before? So you don't like how I am now? That's not it, I just want the old Scott back. Before I could finish, Scott came out of his room. Fine, I'll go out. Are you happy now? With that, he stormed out of the house, still in his pajamas, without telling me where he was going. What should I do now? Alone in the living room, all I could do was mutter to myself. If my husband were still alive, what would he have said? Looking at his photo on the altar, I sought help, but there was no reply. This mood must have shown at work because one day, even the manager asked me if I was all right, noting my gloomy expression. Not wanting to cause any trouble, I forced a smile and answered. I'm fine. It's just some trouble at home. Just a little. I told myself and got through another day of work. Mandy, who had gotten married and had children, still checked on me from time to time. On her days off, she would bring her daughter Ashley to visit. However, since Scott became reclusive, we started meeting outside. I didn't want her to see the mess in the house. Mandy didn't seem to mind at first, but by the 4th time, she must have sensed something. She lured me out to a restaurant at the aquarium during a break. Mom, is something wrong? We've been meeting outside a lot lately. Oh, is that so? But Ashley is having fun, right? Ashley happily played with a killer whale plushie I had bought her. Is your brother doing well? He's not troubling you by going fishing all the time, right? Not at all. He's going fishing every week. It's proof he's well. In reality, he wasn't going fishing at all, but was either lazing in his room or going to the casino. Though he used to manage his money well, lately he had been spending it on casino and lottery tickets. As long as he's fine. she said, sipping her coffee frappe. The sun was warm enough to make you sweat slightly, signaling the end of winter. Watching my daughter and granddaughter, I truly wished this moment could last forever. But, unfortunately, reality worsened. "Give me some money, Mom." When I returned home, Scott demanded irritably. "What? What do you need it for?" "Gambling." I went because there's a new slot machine, but I lost big. "I need to go again." "Stop it, no more gambling. Hurry up and give me the money. I need it for my revenge." No sooner had he said this than he snatched my bag, pulled out some bills from my wallet, and dashed out like the wind. It all happened in an instant, and I was speechless. It was only later that I felt truly frightened. My bag and the ransacked wallet lay miserably discarded in the hallway. I collapsed, weakened by the ordeal. Why has it come to this? Will I never see the vibrant Scott again? Am I doomed to spend my days with him as he continues to decline? With this sense of despair, the days just kept passing by. Scott's outings became more frequent, and the amount of money he demanded increased. Money had been taken from my wallet without me noticing. I could no longer leave my wallet at home with peace of mind. It seemed like a good opportunity to use electronic payments, which I had learned about from my cashier job, and I no longer carried cash. I was initially pleased since I could also accumulate points, but once Scott found out I wasn't carrying cash, he got angry and started throwing a fit. "Why not? It's just some pocket money. Why don't you get a job for once? Stop joking. Give me the money." He constantly begged me for money and spent it all on gambling. When he ran out, he would demand more and shout at me. I was constantly afraid that he might eventually resort to violence. Exhausted, I lost the energy to meet with my children. I gradually stopped seeing Mandy and Ashley, using my busy schedule as an excuse. This situation continued for about a year until I was completely worn out, and then Mandy contacted me. "Hey, isn't it almost your birthday? Let's all get together next month on Sunday." Mandy mentioned that the grandchildren were preparing a surprise this year. Looking at the calendar, the annual birthday celebration was just around the corner. I hadn't even realized it. Given Scott's current situation and my own state, I wasn't in the mood to celebrate. Honestly, I wanted to decline. But contrary to my true feelings, I felt a sudden lift in my spirits. The thought of my children and grandchildren wanting to celebrate was delightful. Once a year, on that day, I too wanted to spend time lively and happily. Yes, thank you. I'll keep that day free. I hadn't said a word to them about Scott. As long as I keep quiet and Scott doesn't meet anyone, they won't know. They won't have to worry. With that thought, I decided to pretend that everything was fine with Scott on the day of the birthday celebration. Scott and I are living a happy life as usual. I'll just say that. I murmured to myself in a place where Scott wasn't around. After Mandy's call, I began to clean the house little by little. It would be troublesome if this room, where more than 10 people would gather, had no place to stand. I threw out the dusty cardboard boxes from online shopping and put the bundle of used lottery tickets into a black garbage bag to be disposed of on Burnable Trash Day. I vacuumed while Scott was out since he would yell if he heard the noise. I cleaned carefully until the birthday party. Then the day arrived. The weather was clear and calm. About an hour before the children and grandchildren were to arrive, Scott left the house. As soon as he learned about the birthday party, he shouted, "Cancel it, it's too noisy." I told you to cancel it, but everyone has already arranged their schedules. That's ridiculous. He rampaged in his room for a while. Then, just a moment ago, after extorting some money from me, he disappeared to the casino. I felt a slight relief. Now Scott and the other siblings wouldn't have to meet. All that was left was to wait for everyone to gather. Soon after Scott left, the children and grandchildren started arriving one by one. As they all wished me happy birthday, my heart filled with joy. Each of the 9 grandchildren shyly celebrated with me. Seeing their innocent faces, I felt a complex emotion. Was I pretending to be happy for these children? That thought suddenly crossed my mind. It's okay, it's just for today, I told myself, fighting against this small guilt. The birthday party started immediately. Everyone brought dishes like finger food, salad sets, chicken, and pizza. The last item Mandy brought was a birthday cake, which the grandchildren had spent time making. The cake was topped with lots of chocolate, strawberries, and blueberries. On a piece of chocolate in the center, it read, "Happy birthday, Grandma Kathy." The writing was so squiggly that it was just barely readable, adding to its charm. The warmth of their handmade effort touched my heart. How wonderful! Thank you, everyone. I hugged each grandchild one by one. I was overjoyed that they had all made such an effort. Lastly, I hugged Ashley tightly. Thank you, Ashley. Ashley put the strawberries on. Her lisping words filled my heart, and I hugged her again. Mom, listen. Mandy began, standing beside Ashley. When I looked, I noticed her belly had swelled, and she was happily stroking it. Next month, you'll meet the 10th grandchild. The room was crowded, and I hadn't noticed. She was already in her final month. What? Surprise, joy, and an overwhelming anxiety all rushed in at once. Oh, my goodness. I haven't seen you for about a year, so I missed telling you. It's a boy. Live a long life, Grandma. Yes, I will. Ashley hugged me around the neck, and everyone in the room celebrated the happy news. Congratulations, the family is growing, I'll send a gift. Everyone exchanged words as they pleased. However, deep down, I couldn't suppress my complex emotions. In truth, Scott had been taking money from me continuously, and my savings were depleted. My daily life had also become a struggle. I wanted to give Mandy a gift if possible, but I could no longer afford it. I hadn't expected to feel so miserable at such a joyful and fun occasion. Amid the celebratory mood, I quietly left the scene alone. I felt so pathetic that I might cry. Pretending to go to the bathroom, I went upstairs. Suddenly, Scott's room, with the door half open, caught my eye. What state was his room in now? I slowly opened the door. The room, with the curtains drawn, was dim. Empty beer cans and plastic bottles were tossed on the floor. Scraps of lottery tickets and betting slips were scattered around. Fishing magazines lay around as they were read. The business bag was ripped to shreds and stuffed in the trash can. The fishing rods and other equipment were pushed into a corner, covered in dust. I stood there, dumbfounded, in the ruined room. Why had it come to this? The tears I had been holding back rolled down my cheek. Then, I heard heavy footsteps from downstairs, and someone was coming up. I turned around in shock, and there was Scott, looking irritated with a sinister gleam in his eyes. He said in a low, growling voice, "I lost at casino. I'm going back, so give me some money. Come on, enough is enough. Just give me the money. I don't have any on me right now. The grandchildren are here today, too, so please be quiet." So you have money for the grandchildren, but not for me? I don't even have enough to give to the grandchildren. Really? Liar. Am I just a nuisance to you? Scott flew into a rage and advanced on me. Stop. I also want to give a gift to my new grandchild, but I can't, and it's frustrating. Isn't your own son more important to you? I slipped past Scott and ran away. I found an empty room, the one where I usually hang the laundry, and entered. Looking back, I saw Scott with bloodshot eyes, flailing his arms as he chased after me. Money. Give me the money. I stepped out onto the balcony. If Scott hit me and I fell badly, who knows what could happen? If it led to a serious injury, Scott might end up being arrested. This could seriously hinder his chances of reintegration into society. It would hurt and upset the remaining children and grandchildren. That was absolutely unacceptable. In a split second, I jumped off the balcony. From the second floor, I might just get away with a fracture. If that's all it took to escape from Scott, it was a small price to pay. I fell headfirst and crashed into the ground. My vision flashed red, then blue, then dark. A tremendous shock went through my body, and for a moment, I felt nothing. The children must have heard something because they started screaming. The grandchildren began to cry, and the scene turned chaotic. From the balcony, I caught a glimpse of Scott peering down. He looked shaken and frightened as he saw me lying in the yard. Then he clasped his head and screamed. His siblings also heard his scream. I don't remember much after that. The sounds of Scott's cries, filled with regret or sorrow, echoed distantly. When I woke up, I was staring at the ceiling of a hospital room. The doctor told me I had severe injuries that would take 6 months to heal. The doctor also scolded me heavily for jumping off the balcony. I had broken my right leg and right wrist, and I would need rehabilitation. Naturally, the children and grandchildren were shocked. They took turns visiting me in the hospital, relieved that I was safe. Though it wasn't without consequences, my life was spared, and everyone was relieved. Mandy thought her heart would stop when she visited me in the hospital. When she saw me, she burst into tears of joy. Really, stop doing things like this, Tham. I'm sorry. That day on the balcony, Scott had confessed everything to his siblings. Because of that, they became aware of our financial situation and the struggles we were facing. You should have told us if you were in trouble. I didn't want to worry you. It would have been better to worry us than for things to come to this. She said this, crying in front of Ashley. The children learned about mine and Scott's situation and started to help us financially and in everyday life. They sympathized with Scott being laid off, but were critical of his subsequent actions. Scott also began to deeply reflect on his behavior. He struggled to find a new job and was lucky to receive an offer from a small real estate company. After securing a job, he started visiting me in the hospital. He entered the room timidly, shrinking in guilt. Mom, I'm sorry for causing you trouble. His hair was neatly groomed, and he had cleanly shaved his stubble. Dressed in a crisp suit and tie, he looked ready to make a fresh start. He appeared slightly brighter, which surprised me. People can change, can't they? Don't get all sentimental on me. But how did you change so suddenly? He hesitated for a moment, then looked down sheepishly and said, That day, you tried to escape from me by jumping off the balcony. Yes, I thought it was the only thing I could do at that moment. As I watched you disappear from the balcony, I remembered everything I had done in an instant. A tear formed in the corner of his eye. That's when I realized what I had done. It must have been a shocking sight for my son. Though it was an extreme form of intervention, it was a risky choice. I'm sorry, I won't do that again. That's my line. I'll take good care of you, Mom, don't leave me behind. True to his word, he changed his ways and returned to the vibrant person he was before the layoff. My injuries healed well, and after being discharged from the hospital, I continued to live with Scott. I no longer intend to reprimand him. As the saying goes, misfortune turned into a blessing. Both he and I were better off. Later, surrounded by my children and grandchildren, we celebrated my discharge from the hospital. This time, we'll celebrate grandly. So said Mandy, rallying her siblings. By the time I was discharged, Mandy's baby had been born, and the number of grandchildren had increased to 10. The chubby little hands of the baby boy were adorable. All I hope is that they live healthy, happy, and prosperously.
One day, I received a call from my son. Where is Dad right now? Do you need something? Your father is now working at the head office and staying in the company's dormitory for singles. Alex remained silent for a while, then hesitantly started speaking. There's no dormitory for singles at Dad's company. Why do you know such a thing, Alex? According to Alex's explanation, he had attended a job fair while job hunting. My husband's company was also there, and he remembered other students asking if there was a dormitory. Why did he lie about going to a dormitory? I felt uneasy. Alex's silence continued. Do you know something, Alex? It's a bit hard to say, but it seems like Dad is having an affair. Are you sure you didn't mistake him for someone else? I understand how you feel, Mom, but it was definitely Dad. Now it was my turn to be silent. I didn't know what to say. My hand was trembling as I gripped the phone. I am Michelle Brown, 43, a homemaker. I live with my husband Steve, 45. Our son Alex, 23, left home when he started university. We get along well with my in-laws, who visit our home from time to time. I heard from a friend that especially the mother-in-law dislikes coming to the house. I don't mind it, and it's nice to have a chat. My father-in-law Dan, 68, and mother-in-law, Kathy, 67, also get along well and often go out together. They never miss their daily walks for health reasons. Today, my in-laws came to visit after buying cake from a nearby sweet shop during their walk. I love those cake, so my cheeks relaxed without realizing it. I brewed some top-quality coffee for my in-laws and enjoyed the cake with them. Eating delicious food makes everyone smile. Alex called the other day too. Seems he's doing well. I wonder if he's managing well as a working adult. I'm worried. Alex will be fine. He's responsible and considerate, so everyone likes him. I hope so. Michelle, you need to let go a little. I understand you're worried, but Alex is a grown man now. Alex has always been close to his grandparents. Even during his university days, he regularly contacted his grandparents. He's considerate towards others. He always calls at 8:50 p.m. I wondered why that was. Noticing my curiosity, my father-in-law started to explain. Most likely, he knows we watch dramas starting at 9 p.m. So he calls during the commercials. Calling after 9 p.m. would be inconvenient as we'd be watching the drama. I thought that made sense. He's considerate like that. I thought he must be doing well at his company too. That night, I told my husband about his parents' visit. However, his reaction was lukewarm. I sarcastically thought he might still be in his rebellious phase. My husband doesn't seem to get along with his parents. Is that so? That was all he said, and the conversation did not continue. My in-laws are easygoing and soft-spoken. It's hard to believe my husband came from these parents. While we were dating, he always smiled and was always a gentleman. He always walked on the roadside when we were walking. But my husband changed drastically after we got married. His tone became arrogant, almost as if he was saying, "I'm the one supporting you." Was it my fault for being deceived, or was I foolish for not seeing through him? Now, the only thing keeping us together is our child. But unusually, my husband was in a good mood today. I got assigned to the head office this spring. Finally, my luck is turning around. That's great to hear. I was also pleased for another reason. If his salary increased, he might give me more for living expenses. My husband only gives me the living expenses and manages the money himself. I don't even know how much my husband earns. Until now, the living expenses were just enough, and we had no spare money. I thought this would allow us to live a bit more comfortably. But his next words shattered that thought. I've decided to move into the company's dormitory for a while. It's too far to commute from here, and renting a room costs money. I completely agreed with his decision to live alone. Since you'll be alone, I'll reduce the money a bit. I have my own living expenses too, so this should be enough, right? The amount he mentioned was less than half of what it is now. That wouldn't be enough even for one person to live on. If you don't have enough money, you can do part-time work or whatever you like. I was speechless. You don't have to come see me. It's a waste of train fare, and the dormitory doesn't allow women. I had no intention of visiting, but more than that, living on less than half the expenses was unimaginable. You're getting promoted, right? Why would you decrease the living expenses? That's odd. I didn't say I wouldn't give you living expenses. So, you don't need them, right? Faced with that response, all I could do was fall silent. Who would want to visit such a terrible husband? But I hadn't realized that this was a cunning tactic to discourage me from visiting him. Reluctantly, I decided to get a part-time job. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to afford my own meals. It was my first time visiting the employment office. Many people were there looking for jobs. I printed out the details of a company that interested me and waited for my turn. I must have waited nearly an hour before it was finally my turn. They contacted the employer for me. They said they could interview me immediately. The office was only one train station away from my home, which made commuting convenient. The place I visited, based on the address, was a small office in a multi-tenant building. When I knocked and entered, the office was quite different from what I had imagined. It had a homely atmosphere. The person who interviewed me was very pleasant. He introduced himself as Ted Morris. He was just my type. I honestly told him that I had not worked since getting married and was nervous about it. No one here is too strict, and if there's anything, just let me know. After some simple questions, they said they would contact me later, and I left the office. I soon received a call offering me the job. The job was simple clerical work. And the senior woman who would teach me the ropes was also very friendly. Especially Ted, who interviewed me, was considerate towards me and made sure to speak to me often. He seemed to be about the same age as me, and very easy to talk to. On the way home, we stopped at a cafe for coffee, and I decided to enjoy my solo life. However, it was a mistake to inform my husband of my new situation. The freedom I had just found was quickly taken away. My husband continued to bind me. He would call home in the evening. If I didn't answer, he would nag the next day, asking why I hadn't. Moreover, even if I answered once, he would call again irregularly after an hour or 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times. I couldn't take it anymore. I became unable to leave the house in the evening. He intended to never give me freedom. Then one day, I received a call from Alex. Where is Dad right now? Do you need something? Your father is now working at the head office and staying in the company's dormitory for singles. Alex remained silent for a while, then hesitantly started speaking. There's no dormitory for singles at Dad's company. Why do you know such a thing, Alex? According to Alex's explanation, he had attended a job fair while job hunting. His father's company was also there, and other students had asked if there was a dormitory. According to the company's representative, there was no dormitory. But they did offer housing assistance. Why did he lie about going to a dormitory? I felt uneasy. Alex's silence continued. Do you know something, Alex? It's a bit hard to say, but it seems like Dad is having an affair. Just as he started talking, he began to say something unbelievable. He had been making sales calls with his senior that day. Next, we're going to this company. The company his senior pointed to was the one where his father worked. It seemed possible that he might run into his father. He wondered what kind of face he should make if they met. My husband and Alex did not get along well. They had been on bad terms since Alex's rebellious teenage years. Today's visit was just to greet the sales department manager. The meeting ended quickly. It was already past 5 in the evening. His senior said he was heading straight home and that Alex could go home too. Though Alex didn't get along with his father. He thought he might have business dealings with him and decided to greet him as a working adult. It was unclear if he would meet Alex, but he waited in front of the company to see his father come out. When he saw someone who looked like his father, he was about to call out. However, a young woman ran after his father. His father, who he had never seen so happy at home, started walking with the woman, both beaming. Alex thought something was suspicious and hid. The woman appeared to be about the same age as Alex. She was beautiful and well-dressed. Unnoticed by Alex, his father and the woman headed towards the nightlit streets. They entered a high-end restaurant, and after about an hour, they moved to a trendy bar. Following them felt like being a detective, but he had to make sure not to be discovered. Moreover, it was challenging to stay there for a long time without seeming unnatural. And now the problem arises. Unfortunately, the two disappeared into a hotel. I was shaken by Alex's story. Are you sure you didn't mistake him for someone else? I understand how you feel, Mom, but it was definitely Dad. Now it was my turn to be silent. I couldn't find the words to say. My hand trembled as I held the receiver. My husband was having an affair. And with a woman as young as our son. My mind went blank. Mom, are you okay? I'll take care of this, so just pretend you don't know for a while. Do you have a plan?
Yeah.
I won't let Dad get away with this. I won't let him make you sad. I was relieved by Alex's strong words. The only one I could rely on now was my son. It has been nearly a month since then. During that time, there was no contact from Alex, and I became anxious about what had happened. The regular calls from my husband continued as usual. I wanted to confront him about the affair, but I didn't say anything, just as Alex had instructed. The thought of him going to a hotel with a young woman, not much older than Alex, made my head spin with anger. In my dreams, the two of them would mock me. You're no longer needed, old woman. Go away. Don't show up in front of us. I don't want to see your gloomy face anymore. How many times have I had the same dream? Each time, I would wake up from nightmares. I even found myself dozing off at work. Michelle, you look pale. Are you feeling ill? I haven't been able to sleep well lately, and I'm suffering from sleep deprivation. Sounds like insomnia. Is there something worrying you? I couldn't tell the truth and only managed to give vague responses. While living through these unsatisfying days, I received a delightful call from Alex. He wanted to throw a party because he bought presents for everyone with his first paycheck. It seems he wants to give the presents at his grandparents' house this weekend. You didn't have to go through the trouble, but I'm happy. It made me realize that Alex has really become an adult. I can't give anything grand, but please look forward to it. He didn't bring up my husband's affair. I hesitated to dampen the mood of the celebration, so I didn't mention it. I went to my in-laws' house early on the day to help prepare the party food. It seems like just yesterday he was carrying a backpack to school. And now he's already working. Time flies so fast. That's why we age so quickly. It feels like Alex was just born the other day. I can really relate to what the in-laws are saying. My husband is supposed to come today as well. It's been months since we've seen each other. Should I confront him about the affair? I'm torn. I laid out the food I made with my mother-in-law on the table. The doorbell rang, and it was Alex. You're early. Grandpa and Grandma have been waiting for you. Seeing Alex after a long time, he seemed a bit more grown up. Indeed, entering society seemed to have matured him. You must be tired. Come in and relax. The grandparents were clearly overjoyed to have Alex visit. My father-in-law even came out to greet him at the entrance. It's good to see everyone is well. Thank you for preparing everything today. Alex was surrounded by us and led into the living room. While I was preparing drinks for everyone, Alex was bombarded with questions. Have you gotten used to your job? Are your seniors treating you well? Are you eating properly? The grandparents had a lot of questions and fired them rapidly. Alex answered all the questions without showing any annoyance. My senior takes good care of me, and I'm gradually being given more responsibilities. I get along with everyone, and we have proper meals in the dorm, so don't worry. Knowing that Alex was fitting in well at his company seemed to reassure the grandparents. Still, Steve is late. The food will get cold. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. The doorbell rang again. Sure enough, it was my husband. Sorry, I'm late. Work just wouldn't end. Dinner started. I made dishes that were Alex's favorites. He kept saying how delicious everything was. In contrast, my husband ate with a sullen expression. After the meal, we moved to the living room. Finally, it was time for Alex to give out his presents. First, this is for Grandma and Grandpa. What was handed to my father-in-law was a long box tied with a ribbon. What could this be? I'll open it now. Please do. It's something Grandpa has been wanting. It was a fountain pen from a famous international brand. My father-in-law often had occasions to write, and I had heard him expressing his admiration for this pen. I was impressed that Alex remembered such conversations. For Grandma, it was a sandalwood fan with delicate designs carved into it. It looked very luxurious. It's a must-have for the summer. Please be careful of heat stroke. The grandparents had tears glistening in their eyes. I'll cherish and use it well. I'll treasure it. Just make sure you don't keep it tucked away in a drawer. It's pointless if you don't use it. I understand. I'll make sure to use it. And this is for you, Mom. It was an elegant brooch. Let's go shopping together next time. I'll help you find a dress that matches this brooch. I felt tears welling up again. My husband watched us with a cold gaze. What do you have for me? I'm looking forward to it. Alex's expression suddenly changed. Dad, this is for you. Alex handed over a large envelope. My husband looked puzzled and spread its contents on the table. Several photos emerged. As soon as he saw the photos, the color drained from my husband's face. My husband frantically tried to hide the photos, but it was already too late. What is this? Steve, it's nothing. It's just a prank by Alex, right? My husband glared at Alex. It's not a prank. There's a report inside the envelope. Alex pulled out a report from the envelope. It detailed my husband's actions meticulously. The affair partner was Claire Johnson, 24, a woman from the same department as my husband. What are you doing? To have an affair with a woman not much older than your son, are you out of your mind? Faced with my father-in-law's angry voice, my husband shrank back. Normally a mild-mannered person, his anger was terrifying when roused. Using your salary for this, you should spend it on something better. My husband couldn't come up with an excuse and started shouting nonsensically. It's Dad's fault for spending money on this. Apologize to Mom. My mother-in-law burst into tears. It's my fault for raising a son like this. Please forgive me, Michelle. My mother-in-law apologized. It's not your fault, mother. I have my faults too. You haven't done anything wrong, mother. Steve, explain yourself. Seemingly resigned, my husband began to talk about his affair partner. Claire Johnson had joined the company the year before last. My husband was assigned as her mentor for the new employees. While my husband was gruff at home, he always played the part of a friendly man with a constant smile outside. It was only a matter of time before Claire fell for him. It seemed she found young men unsatisfactory. Claire's attraction to the slightly bad boy older man was influenced by her family background. She was raised in a single mother home. Perhaps she longed for a father figure. Or maybe she was waiting for my husband's invitation. They quickly became involved. It appears true that he got transferred to the main office. They started living together in an apartment. To afford the apartment, my living expenses were cut. Apparently, he worried that I would have an affair since he was having one. This led to those persistent evening calls. Although he was having an affair, he couldn't stand the idea of me doing the same. I find it a completely selfish way of thinking. Not that I had any intention of having an affair. I'm cutting ties with you. I'll get Michelle a good lawyer and make you and your affair partner pay as much compensation as possible. Get out of this house right now. Driven by my father-in-law's anger, my husband fled. My in-laws kept apologizing profusely. Michelle, you don't need to worry about anything. We'll take care of everything, including financial support. You don't have to do that. Alex is here, too. Right, Grandpa doesn't need to do anything. No, let me handle this. I won't be satisfied otherwise. Michelle, let us take care of it. In reality, I couldn't even afford a lawyer, so I had to rely on their offer. Things went smoothly thereafter. It seemed that my husband was completely smitten with Claire. He was willing to lose everything as long as he had Claire. During the divorce negotiations, financial abuse was recognized. And not only compensation but also a settlement was increased. Money that hadn't been properly given for living expenses and other things was added to a considerable amount. After paying those compensation, my husband was left with almost no money. The house was obtained as part of the divorce settlement. The condition was that the mortgage must be paid, but the in-laws offered to pay it as an apology. Compensation was also claimed against the affair partner, Claire. Claire, who had dreams and had been saving money, had to use it all for compensation. This was a considerable shock to her. Steve refused to advance her the compensation payment. Even if he wanted to help, he didn't have the money. Claire felt as if her dreams had been devoured. Mentally broken, she quit her job and returned to her family home. I'm not responsible for Claire's breakdown, but it pains my heart. I regret having demanded compensation from Claire in anger. Mom, you shouldn't worry about this. There's nothing you can do anyway. You just have to forget about it. Alex is right. But my heart is still in pain. Our family home is on a remote island, and it's not easy for Steve to visit. Also, in such a small village, I don't know what kind of rumors would start if Steve came. It seems I was emphatically told not to come. Now that we're divorced, Steve, bearing that name, is nothing more than a stranger to me. Whether he lives alone in an apartment has nothing to do with me. We should each live our own lives. But Steve's clingy nature is exasperating. It was my fault. Let's get back together. I realized your value only after losing you. Claire was just a fling. Time and again, Steve calls. These days I let him talk and then hang up without saying a word. From his talks, it seems his room has become quite dirty. Once, he sent me a photo of his room. It felt like I could smell the stench coming from the screen. I deleted it immediately. I've been kicked out of sales. I keep messing up, and people say my clothes smell. It's all your fault. Thinking about how I was married to such a man makes me feel sick. How are you going to take responsibility? It's ridiculous that I, who was once the top in sales, am now being sent to the company archives. It's like they're telling me to quit. Can't he see that everything is his fault? How much does he need to blame others to be satisfied? Is Steve even capable of rational thought anymore? One day, I received another call from Steve. I'm coming over tonight. Be ready. The call ended abruptly. I was trembling. What should I do? I didn't know what Steve might do. Hesitantly, I called Alex. I'm on a business trip right now. I'll handle it, so lock the front door and don't go outside under any circumstances. Even though he said he would handle it, Alex was on a business trip. What could he do? Nevertheless, I locked all the doors in the house and secured the front door with a chain. It became night. I was too scared to turn on any lights. As I was jittery, the doorbell suddenly rang. I jumped in shock. There was a loud banging on the door. I know you're there. Open up. Hearing Steve's yelling, I crouched down trembling. Then I heard voices arguing outside. After a while, silence returned. The doorbell rang again. On the monitor, I saw my father-in-law. I rushed to the door and opened it. You can relax now. I've driven Steve away. Relieved, I collapsed in tears. My father-in-law, followed by my mother-in-law, came in. Don't worry anymore. We won't let him come near you again. I invited my in-laws inside. While serving them coffee, I expressed my gratitude. Michelle, you shouldn't apologize. We're to blame for raising such a son. It turned out that my in-laws were there because Alex had contacted them. They had hidden and waited for Steve to appear. Tomorrow, I'll deal with Steve. I know a ship captain who's looking for crew members. It's a deep-sea fishing vessel, and once you're on, you can't return to the US for a year. He needs to get on that ship and straighten himself out. In fact, we've been covering all the compensation. He has to listen to us now. As foolish as he is, he's still our dear child. Just laugh and think of us as foolish parents. Every parent loves their child, of course. Michelle, you might have been concerned about Claire. We've returned her money. She was doing well. I'm sorry for the trouble. It must have been hard being so far away. And about the money, we need to return it. No, keep the money. We won't be satisfied otherwise. Sometime later, my father-in-law informed me that Steve had boarded the ship. Whether Steve reforms or not, it's no longer my concern. Now, I'm happy that Alex could participate in a big project at work. I just hope he achieves great results. My relationship with my in-laws is good, and they still visit occasionally. Michelle, you're still young. Life is just beginning. It's too early to grow old. In fact, I've started seeing someone. It's Ted Morris from my company. With my husband's affair and everything, I just thought he was a good person. Going to work and talking to Ted, I realized how calm it made me feel. But it took some time to recognize that my feelings were more than that. It was an emotion I hadn't felt in many years. But now that I'm divorced, I can face those feelings honestly, and I confessed to him. Then, Ted also confessed that he had fallen in love with me at first sight during the interview. Like the seasons, spring has come again for me.
I am living with my son out of consideration for my mother-in-law and her feelings. Please put Max first. What do you mean by that? From now on, the grandparents will be doing the kindergarten pickups and making the lunches. The grandchild is a treasure, right? The daughter-in-law said this with a smirk. So this is her true nature. I am so upset that it makes me sad. We were suggested by our son to live together and started living with his family 3 months ago. Living with our grandson was very joyful, but taking our silence for granted, the daughter-in-law started neglecting the household chores and care of her own children. When we finally addressed this, she responded with the words I mentioned earlier. Unable to say anything, my husband, who had overheard our conversation from the next room, came in. If that's what you say, we'll do exactly that. After all, you're living with us. My husband gave me a meaningful look. Yes, we will take care of Max ourselves. Pleased with our response, the daughter-in-law went back to her room with a satisfied expression. If Erica means that, then we have to respond appropriately. I nodded at my husband's words. My name is Kim Brown. Our only son, Steve, left home 6 years ago when he got married. Now, I live with my husband Howard. Howard is 55 years old. He was a middle school teacher but retired early 2 years ago due to the demanding nature of his job. The kid is already independent, and we have some savings. We'll manage with my part-time job for now, so don't worry. I convinced my husband, who had worked hard for our family, to take an early retirement. 6 months after he quit his job, his health remarkably improved. Maybe I should start tutoring. After more than 30 years as a teacher, he continued to engage with children by working part-time at a tutoring center without overdoing it. He is very lively now. This experience made us deeply realize how being healthy in both mind and body is truly blissful. Our current life is ordinary, but we are very satisfied with the peace of mind it brings. Max, you'll be a first grader next year. Have you already bought your school backpack? Our lives drastically changed the day after this conversation, triggered by a phone call from Steve. Steve lived about a 30-minute drive away with his wife Erica and their 5-year-old son, Max. Although we often reached out to see our grandson, it was rare for them to contact us. So, it was unusual when Steve called. It's rare to hear from you. Are you 3 all well? Have you bought Max's school backpack yet? I ended up bombarding him with questions. No, not yet. It's about time to buy one, isn't it? If you and Erica are okay with it, can we give it as a gift for his school entry? That would really help, Mom. Steve's voice perked up for a moment, but then there was a pause. What's wrong? Actually, Mom, I have something to discuss. Can we come live with you at our family home? Live together? I was speechless at the sudden proposal. Steve reluctantly explained the reason. I hadn't heard about it before, but Steve's family was currently facing financial uncertainties. As Max grows, expenses will increase, right? We need to start saving now, Erica and I discussed. So Erica is also hoping to live together? This was surprising to me. Erica, my daughter-in-law, had quit her job when she became pregnant with Max and had been a homemaker ever since. Although the woman my son chose was not a bad person, I always felt a barrier and still hadn't quite gotten a grasp on Erica. Normally, a daughter-in-law would dislike living with her in-laws. Erica is actually looking forward to it. In fact, she suggested we live together. I was truly surprised by Steve's words, but nothing could be more joyful than always being with my grandson. I agreed without hesitation. Is this my home from today? Yes. Let's live together. Yay! A month later, my son's family moved into our home. Max's presence instantly brightened our home. Erica, hang your clothes here, and the detergent stock is here. I showed Erica everything around the house. Thank you, Mother. Thank you too, for suggesting we live together. Though I still felt a barrier, I actively tried to communicate with Erica to build a good relationship. Initially, Erica was quite reserved. I did most of the cooking, but she took the initiative in other household chores and shopping. Isn't Erica a good daughter-in-law? No wonder Steve fell for her. Living together allowed me to finally feel positive about Erica. However, gradually, her true nature began to reveal itself. Your cooking is so bland and always full of vegetables. It's really plain, isn't it? Erica, who is picky about food, started to criticize my cooking. I'm sorry. When you reach our age, you tend to prefer lighter foods. But I make sure it's nutritionally balanced and healthy. Ever since my husband fell ill, I've been studying nutrition and am very careful about our meals. While the dishes might seem tasteless to younger people, I am proud that they are healthy. Erica didn't stop at just complaining about the food. Mother, I don't want creases in my clothes, so could you leave them hanging instead of folding them? Then you should do it yourself. Even Steve started to scold Erica as she became increasingly presumptuous. However, far from reflecting, Erica became even more arrogant. In these times, you should be grateful that I'm allowing you to live with your grandchild. Hearing Erica dismiss Steve's words, both my husband and I felt frustrated, but considering the ongoing cohabitation, we held our tongues. Erica, seeing our silence as consent, began to do whatever she wanted. At first, she did take Max to kindergarten and made his lunches, but even that became too much for her. Max, what about kindergarten? Mom said I could stay home today. Grandma, let's play. When it was too much hassle, she started letting him skip kindergarten. Despite being a stay-at-home mom, she even started neglecting to take care of her own child. I was truly appalled. But that was still nothing compared to what came next. You're going to kindergarten today, right? Oh. What about your lunch? This morning, Erica hadn't made a lunch. Feeling uneasy, I checked Max's kindergarten bag and found a snack pastry from a store inside. Sending a kindergartner to school with just a snack pastry for lunch. I couldn't keep silent this time. Erica, this is too much. As a stay-at-home mom, you should at least make a lunch for your child. However, Erica threw unbelievable words back at me. Neither you nor father-in-law are working much, are you? You have time. I am living with my in-laws for the sake of my son. Please think of Max first. What do you mean by that? From now on, please handle all the pickups and lunch preparations. The grandchild is a treasure, right? Erica smirked as she spoke. So this is her true nature. I was so angry that it made me sad. Unable to say anything, my husband, who had heard our conversation from the next room, came in. If Erica says that, then we will do as she says. After all, we are living together. My husband gave me a meaningful look. Yes, we will take care of Max ourselves. Pleased with our response, Erica returned to her room with a satisfied look. After a while, she dressed up and left the house alone. If that's what Erica intends, then we must respond appropriately. I nodded at my husband's words. That evening, Steve came back after Erica and Max had gone to bed. I hate to bother you while you're tired. We reported the day's events to Steve. I'm really sorry. I'll speak to her properly. Steve, already tired from work, was further stressed by the situation. We couldn't burden him more as he was working hard for his family, and we couldn't let Erica continue to do whatever she wanted while living with us. We have a good idea. Can you trust us with this? I said this, patting the worried-looking Steve on the shoulder and showing a smile. Following that, we prioritized Max's care as Erica had said. I took over making Max's lunches, and my husband took care of the kindergarten pickups. Now that Erica no longer had to take care of her child, she started waking up only after Max had left for kindergarten and often went out dressed up during the day. Sometimes, she would just laze around the house all day in her pajamas with her smartphone in hand. Honestly, it was bothersome, but my husband and I decided not to say anything to Erica. Taking advantage of our silence, her selfishness escalated even further. One day, Erica had not returned home by Max's bedtime. "Mom, where did you go? She's late, isn't she? I'll try contacting her." We were worried and called Erica. "Hello." Erica's carefree voice came through the phone. "Where are you right now? If you're going to be late, at least let us know." Then, an unexpected response came. "I forgot to tell you, but I'm at a hotel in Miami right now." "A hotel in Miami?" "Yes. I'll be back tomorrow evening, so please take care of Max." The call ended abruptly. A trip? We hadn't heard anything about it. My husband and I looked at each other and sighed. "Mom, where is she?" Max looked anxious. "She has some errands and can't come home today." "Max, let's sleep together today. How about we read the riddle book we borrowed from the library together?" "Yeah." Howard managed to distract Max well and took him to the bedroom. Just then, Steve came home. "Steve, did you know Erica was going on a trip?" Steve frowned. "A trip? What are you talking about? Where would the money for that come from?" Steve sighed deeply. "I better talk to her myself. Don't worry, I intend to make Erica take full responsibility. We are looking after Max properly." It seemed Steve sensed that we had a plan. "All right." Steve stepped back obediently. "But from now on, you should manage the household finances. You shouldn't give Erica any money other than her allowance." Until now, Steve had been giving all his salary to Erica, letting her manage their finances. So, he had no idea how much they were spending or how much they had saved. But that just let her do whatever she wanted. Following our advice, from the next month, Steve only gave Erica an allowance of $200 and made sure not to give her any more money than that. $200 isn't enough for anything. Erica protested vehemently. "But that's also my allowance." When Steve said that, Erica fell silent. "The woman next door has a brand name bag, but we have." Initially, Erica complained every time she saw Steve's face after he told her. "You're not doing housework or taking care of the kids, so you should work." But then she stopped saying anything. Erica started taking out her frustrations on me and my husband. That's why the food is bland and full of vegetables. Ah, here we go again. So annoying. Erica continued to complain about my cooking, but we were not defeated. Max says he loves it. "Yeah. I love Grandma's food." "Nice, Max." "Sorry, but we are prioritizing Max." We quietly fought back using the phrase Erica once used. "Think of the grandchild first. It's so noisy from the morning." One morning, Erica came out of her room looking furious. I thought I'd make a swing for Max thanks to living with our grandson. I found a new hobby. "Thank you, Erica." As soon as he said this, the sound of a hammer hitting would echoed throughout the house. Erica frowned, but seeing Max's eyes sparkle next to Howard, she couldn't say anything more. Howard started doing DIY deliberately when Erica was at home. "It's noisy." I wasn't about to lose to Erica's grumbling. "Howard is making a chair for Max right now." When you put your grandchild first, you just want to make things for him. "Is there anything else you think we should make?" Erica glared at me, who was smiling politely in response, and went back to her room. Contrary to Erica, who was accumulating daily frustrations, Max grew more and more attached to us each day. "Steve, I can't stand living in this house." One evening, I overheard Erica exploding with complaints to Steve. "Max seems very happy. Since we moved here, he hasn't even caught a cold. You're getting all the housework and childcare done, right? You better change your attitude soon, or you're going to have a hard time. Steve warned Erica. From then on, Erica's attitude improved somewhat when Steve was around. However, Steve often went on business trips. During those times, Erica would return home late as usual, doing as she pleased. Steve's words had no effect on her. It's been 8 months since they started living with us. Max had finally started elementary school. With the start of school lunches and group walks to school in the morning, there was no more need for packed lunches or rides, leaving my husband and me with nothing much to do. Max, what did you do today? My husband, a former teacher, willingly taught Max and started going to the library with him. Grandma, my friend said he wanted to come over, so I brought him. Sometimes after school, Max would bring friends home. Oh, welcome. Wash your hands, and maybe we'll bake some cookies. When this happened, just like when Steve was young and brought friends over, I would bake sweets with them or serve homemade treats if I knew about it in advance. Max's grandparents are so kind and nice. Right? Grandma and Grandpa are always on my side. Max said proudly, making his friends envious. Those words filled both my husband and me with joy. During dinner one day, when Erica usually ate quickly and returned to her room, she spoke to Max. Max, shall Mom help you with your homework? No thanks. Grandpa helps me with my studies. Max responded immediately. Seeing Erica's stunned face, we struggled to contain our laughter. Actually, that afternoon, Max had brought a friend home and they had this conversation. What's your favorite food, Max? Fried chicken. Can your mom make fried chicken? No, Grandma makes it. Actually, Grandma makes all our meals. Is that so? Erica must have heard this conversation from her room and finally realized she had no place in this scenario. How about we go out together on your next day off? No, I have plans to play with my friends. We're going to make pasta with Grandma, right? Max looked at me and smiled, so I smiled back and nodded. Seeing our interaction, Erica's expression turned visibly displeased. Aren't you overstepping by ignoring me, his mother? Erica glared at me. I was dumbfounded by her audacity but remained cheerful for Max's sake. It's exactly what you said, Erica. To think of the grandchild first. To us, Max is a treasure. That's not what I mean. Erica slammed the table, stood up quickly, and stormed into her room, slamming the door loudly. Seeing this, Max looked uneasy. It's okay. If Max wants to play with his mom, he can, and if he wants to be with Grandma and Grandpa, we're delighted. We are on Max's side. I patted his head, and he showed a relieved smile. From then on, while Max was at school, Erica persistently demanded, "Give me back my son." Give back? We are merely being grandparents. He's not even close to me, his mother. That sounds like a you problem. You must be saying bad things about me. Erica blamed us for Max not being close to her, ignoring her own actions since moving in. Steve must feel that this situation is odd too. Erica somehow believed Steve would support her. Since she wouldn't listen to us, we decided to discuss it when Steve returned from his business trip in 2 days. Steve, tell your father and mother to back off. As soon as Steve returned, Erica cried to him. We had already explained the situation to Steve, who sighed deeply. You brought this on yourself. Steve coldly rejected Erica. In a shocking turn of events, Erica then turned to Max for sympathy. Max, you like Mom more than Grandma and Grandpa, right? Max then came between my husband and me and grabbed our hands tightly. Grandma and Grandpa are always with me, listen to me, and teach me. I love my grandparents. Hearing this, Erica's face contorted. Are you betraying your mother? Her shout echoed in the room, causing Max to grimace. Seeing her lash out at Max was the last straw for us. "Howard, could you take Max upstairs?" Howard gently embraced the frightened Max and took him upstairs as I had asked. With the living room quiet, I slammed a thick envelope on the table. "What is this? Thompson Detective Agency?" Hearing detective agency, Erica flinched. I silently spread the contents of the envelope on the table. "What is this?" The photos clearly showed Erica holding hands with a man, entering a room together, along with a report that indicated an affair. We couldn't understand why we had to live together given Steve's average income. Suspicious of Erica, who neglected even her child's care and spent time frivolously, we hired a detective agency. The findings were beyond our wildest expectations, revealing Erica's affair. Steve glared at Erica as she trembled and looked down. "You've betrayed our family. I want a divorce now." "No, wait." Steve brushed off Erica's pleading hands. "What's different? To you, we're nothing. Just go to that man you're cheating with." I had never seen Steve so upset. It pained me to see our son this way. "I'm sorry. I went too far. I won't do it again, please forgive me." Trying desperately to be forgiven, Erica knelt. "There's no way I can forgive you. Then I accept the divorce, but I won't give up Max." At this point, what was she thinking? I was astounded. "You won't get custody." As I said this, Erica glared at me sharply. "Max is my child. I bore him. I won't hand him over to someone like you." Erica was openly hostile toward me. "For the past year, we've mostly been the ones taking care of Max. You've neglected your child and even had an affair. With all this evidence, there's no way you can get custody. I will get the compensation for the affair through the lawyer, too. If you object, we can take this to court. Anyway, pack your things now and get out of here." Thus, Erica was forcibly expelled from our home. After Erica left, Steve sat down wearily. "I'm sorry for hiring the detective without telling you." While putting away the evidence of the affair into an envelope, I apologized to Steve. In fact, after learning of the affair, Howard and I had seriously debated whether to tell Steve the truth. We had hoped Erica might reform. However, there was no sign of that from her, and her attempt to unfairly hurt her own child was something we could not forgive. "Mom, Dad, sorry for all the trouble. Can we still stay here?" Steve apologized, looking remorseful. "Of course. Let's raise Max to be happy together." At that moment, Howard and Max came down from upstairs. "Dad, what's wrong?" Max immediately noticed Steve's red eyes. "Max, Mom is going to live somewhere else now." Max clung tightly to Howard next to him. Poor thing. He must have remembered being yelled at just by hearing the word. "Mom. Max, we'll always live here together with Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad." Saying this, Howard hugged Max tightly, and Max's expression softened a bit. Afterward, Steve and Erica proceeded with the divorce through their lawyers, dispassionately. The fact of Erica's affair also became known to Erica's parents. "I am truly sorry for what my daughter has done." Erica's parents apologized, having flown in just to see us. Since the day we drove her out, we didn't know where Erica was or what she was doing. Do you think Erica is reflecting on what happened? When I asked Erica's mother, she gave a shocking response. "We also don't know where our daughter is. We've disowned her." Disowned. I sensed a serious resolve from her parents. Just then, Max ran over. "Grandpa and Grandma. You came to visit? Max. You've grown so much. Look, we brought your favorite snacks." They smiled warmly, clearly happy to reunite with Max. Max also seemed genuinely happy to see his grandparents, who he didn't see often. It's quite a trip to our place, but please come to see Max again. At my words, the two looked surprised. Is that really okay? Of course. Let's all watch over Max together. Thank you so much. To Erica's parents, Max was their only grandchild. Even though they were far away, their feelings were the same as ours. They always cared deeply for Max. Thus, even after Steve and Erica divorced, we kept in regular contact with Erica's parents and updated them on how things were going. Grandpa, I went catching dragonflies with Grandpa the other day. That's great. Next time, let's go bug hunting with Grandpa. Since Erica left, a peaceful life had returned to us. Recently, I learned that Erica had contacted Steve several times after the divorce. Erica asked me to get back together. Erica was quickly abandoned by her affair partner and ended up alone. However, she had never really worked and had always lived however she wanted, so she was not keen to find a job and soon ran out of her savings. So I hear that she pressed Steve for a reconciliation. When Steve refused, she then asked for financial support. People really don't change that easily, do they? I felt no emotion towards her anymore. Do you still get messages from her? I was worried. No. Every time she contacted me, I just sent her the affair evidence photos without writing anything. Then she gave up. Hearing that, I felt relieved. Thanks, Mom. Good night. Perhaps out of embarrassment, Steve quickly went to his room after saying that. It was a brief word of thanks, but I could sense many emotions in it. Thank you for the lively days. I murmured softly. A year later, Max, now in second grade, was deeply involved in soccer. After school, he would sweat it out at the soccer club, and when he came home, he would watch international soccer matches with Howard, who enjoyed watching soccer. On days when Steve was off work, the father and son would play soccer games together. Grandpa, want to try the game? That's okay. I can't handle such complicated things. It's not hard. Come on, let's play together. Saying that, Max and Steve sat down with Howard between them. Looking at the three men sitting on the sofa, I felt a touch of warmth. Surrounded by a calm and happy atmosphere. 3 generations, I want us to continue cherishing these simple everyday moments. Hey, lunch is ready. Hurry up before it gets cold. At my call, the 3 hungry men looked back. You 3 all make the same face. We all looked at each other and laughed. My name is Emily Johnson, and I'm 67 years old. My husband, who was a lawyer, passed away a few years ago in an accident, and now I live alone. I have 1 son, but he got married and moved out. My son's name is Tom Johnson, and he's 35 years old. He works for a civil engineering company, and due to his job, he currently lives in a rented apartment near his work site with his wife. My daughter-in-law, Catherine, is 33 years old. She and my son met at work as they were in the same department. And after dating for a while, they got married 3 years ago. Since my son's job involves a lot of long-term business trips, they've decided to wait before having children, so they don't have any yet. As for me, I'd love to see my grandchildren soon. But I understand my son has his own plans, so I'm patiently waiting. I'm currently unemployed, but with my husband's life insurance, accident insurance, and inheritance, I'm able to live comfortably without any major financial concerns. I consider myself to be healthy, but recently, I've noticed that my legs and back aren't as strong as they used to be. And I often feel uneasy living alone. One day, I got a call from my son saying he was coming to visit. I was excited since it had been a while since he said something like that. When my son arrived, he came with his wife. Mom, it's been a while. How have you been? Hello, Emily. It's been a long time. How are you doing? They said they had news to share, and I started thinking, maybe they're going to have a baby? Well, the current project I'm working on is almost finished. And after that, I'll be transferred to the head office. Oh, really? So you're coming back here? Yeah, I'll be working in the office from now on, so I won't be working on site anymore. That's great. If you're working at the head office, it's in the city, right? Since you won't be on site anymore, why not buy a house around here? Actually, Catherine suggested something. We were thinking, why don't we all live together here in this house? Yes, since you're living alone now, and considering your age, it would be reassuring if we lived together. That way, if you ever need care, we'd be here to help. Is that so? I'm still quite healthy, you know. Yes, but you never know what might happen. And living alone as you get older can be a bit worrisome. Well, it's true that living alone can be a bit nerve-wracking at times. But isn't this house a bit old for all of us to live together? This house was built by my late husband. It's a 30-year-old two-story house with 5 rooms and a large garden. On the first floor, there's a kitchen, bathroom, and toilet, along with 3 Japanese-style rooms and a living room. The second floor has a Western-style room that my husband used as a study, and another room that we used as a bedroom. If my son and his wife were to move in, they'd probably use the first floor while I stayed on the second floor. That's why we have a suggestion. Catherine leaned in excitedly. How about we renovate the house? Renovate the house? Yes, this home was built during the bubble, so it's strong and made with good materials. It would be a shame to tear it down. So we thought it would be great if we could renovate it and all live together. That's what we wanted to discuss. Catherine started to speak hesitantly. So, could we ask you to cover the renovation costs? I'm going to cover the renovation costs? Yes, before coming here, we got a rough estimate. We plan to turn the first floor into a barrier-free space. We'll modernize the kitchen and integrate it with the living room, making it an open-plan kitchen. We'll also renovate the bathroom and toilet with the latest amenities. On the second floor, we'll build a large balcony and turn it into a sunroom. We'll live on the second floor and create a room for you on the first floor since stairs can be tough. And it would be more convenient for you to have a bathroom close by. The total budget is around $120,000. Catherine said all this in one breath, clearly very enthusiastic about the plan. If you agree to this plan, we can live together, and I'll take care of you in the future. My son said, well, we've saved up a decent amount. But if we have kids in the future, there will be a lot of expenses. So we want to keep costs down as much as possible. What do you think? It's not a bad idea, right? Hold on a second. You've sprung this on me out of nowhere. I can't just say, sure, I'm on board, right away. Well, today we just wanted to bring it up, so please think about it. If you can come up with the money, we'll handle all the details. Emily, this is something that will make everyone happy. Please consider it seriously. We're asking you. Honestly, I thought my son and daughter-in-law's proposal made sense. However, when Catherine said, if you pay for it, we'll live together and take care of you, it left me feeling uneasy. Does this mean they'll take care of me only if I pay for it? Of course, I'd be happy to address the issues I have with the house. But something about this still doesn't sit right with me. At that moment, though, I didn't think too deeply about it. Later on, after my son and daughter-in-law finished their work out of town, They moved into a rental apartment near our family home. Once they were close by, Catherine started visiting more frequently and kept bringing up the renovation plan, urging me to agree. I started thinking that maybe it wasn't such a bad idea after all. But Catherine's insistence felt a bit too desperate. Frustrated with my indecision, Catherine would say things like, "Why won't you agree, Emily? Isn't this a good deal for you too?" Or nowadays, it's rare to find a daughter-in-law who's willing to live with her in-laws. But I'm offering to live with you and take care of you. You won't find another daughter-in-law like me. It was almost threatening. And I started to feel a bit afraid. When I asked, "Why are you so desperate about this?" she glared at me and said, "Desperate? Who do you think this is for? It's all for you. We're offering to take care of you in your old age for $120,000. That's a bargain." Tom, instead of calming his wife down, actually sided with her and said to me, "Mom, think of it as helping us out too. Just listen to what Catherine's saying." I was utterly dismayed. Fortunately, thanks to my late husband, I have enough financial stability. And I always intended to leave the money to my son eventually, so we can manage this. If Catherine is going to take care of me in my old age, then maybe I won't need to worry about the cost of a nursing home. Perhaps Catherine is right, and this really is a win-win situation for everyone. So, I told Tom that I would agree to their plan. "All right then, I'll start making the arrangements, so please get the money ready." When they said that, I cashed in some of the securities from my inheritance and transferred the money to my son's account. We then officially hired the construction company and requested the design plans. Later, the construction company informed us that the design was ready. So I went with my son and his wife to take a look. On this day, Catherine was all smiles. And it was hard to believe she was the same person who had shouted at me before. Since I'd never seen blueprints before, I didn't really understand them. But they showed us the floor plan. The biggest changes were in the areas with plumbing, the bathroom, toilet, and kitchen were being significantly remodeled. The spaces that were once divided by sliding doors would now have walls and regular doors. As I looked over the plans, I noticed a small room connected to the living room. "What's this? It seems too small to be a room. Is it a storage space or a closet?" "Catherine, what's this room for?" "Oh, it's a kind of spare room, or storage, or maybe for the future." "For the future? Do you mean a child's room?" "Well, something like that," Catherine replied, avoiding a direct answer. She seemed to be hiding something. Tom didn't say much, as usual. He'd always been a quiet child. But it was the first time I'd seen him act so submissively toward his wife. Looking back, I should have noticed something was off. But I figured it was up to my son and his wife, so I didn't pay much attention to it. Then the renovations began. I moved into an apartment that the construction company recommended. The apartment building housed 8 families, and my unit was on the second-floor corner. Even though I'd only be there for a short time, I made an effort to greet my neighbors. To my surprise, many of them were quite young, and they all greeted me politely, which was unexpected. My neighbor was a single mother named Kate Swift. Her daughter, Jenny, was a sweet 5-year-old girl. Kate told me she had lost her husband in an accident and had no relatives to rely on. So she was raising Jenny on her own. Despite her situation, Kate was cheerful, and Jenny quickly grew attached to me. Sometimes I'd share food with them, give Jenny snacks, or watch her when Kate had to work late. Jenny also warmed up to my son and daughter-in-law when they occasionally visited. My son even said, "Kids are so adorable. Maybe it's time we start thinking about it too." One day, Kate, who had the day off, invited me over for tea. She usually worked in hotel housekeeping. After a bit of hesitation, she said, "Please don't take this the wrong way." "What is it?" "Well, the other day while I was cleaning a hotel room, I saw your daughter-in-law. She was with a man I didn't recognize." I nearly spat out my tea in shock. "What? Are you sure?" "Yes, I've seen her face many times, so I'm certain. She was dressed quite stylishly, and the man was in a suit." "Please, if you can, could you find out more?" "Oh no, I'm just part-time, I can't go that far. Plus, it would be against the compliance rules." "Against the compliance rules?" It means following the rules or regulations. Basically, it's about ensuring that the company adheres to laws and internal policies. In this case, it means the hotel has a rule about not disclosing guests' privacy. Wow, things are strict these days. But more importantly, you need to address the issue with your daughter-in-law. That's right. I wasn't sure what to do, but I said, we need to gather evidence first. I have someone in mind who might be able to help. I'm sorry if I've caused any trouble. No, not at all. Thank you for telling me. I contacted a private investigator that my late husband had trusted and asked them to look into Catherine's behavior. I was also concerned about Tom's odd behavior, so I asked them to investigate that as well. Since Catherine was a housewife, she had a lot of free time while Tom was at work. I wanted to know what she was doing during those hours. I decided to wait for the investigation results. Meanwhile, the renovation of the house was progressing smoothly. Catherine often used excuses like checking on the renovation progress or buying snacks for the workers to go out more frequently. But when I asked the workers, they said Catherine hardly ever visited. She was probably using the renovation as an excuse to cover up her outings for the affair. Meanwhile, the private investigator's investigation was progressing steadily. It turns out Catherine's affair partner was a high school classmate, her ex-boyfriend, whom she reconnected with at last year's reunion. They had gathered plenty of evidence, including photos and audio recordings. So the case was well documented. When my son and his wife came over one day, I thought I'd ask a few questions. "By the way, Tom, it's been 20 years since you graduated middle school this year. Isn't there a reunion coming up? Is that right? Wasn't it the high school reunion?" Suddenly, there was a loud crack, and Catherine was holding her shin, looking like she was in pain. "What's wrong, Catherine? Are you okay?" "Oh, I just got distracted and bumped into the table leg." "Oh dear, be careful." "So, about the reunion, was it the high school one after all?" "Yeah, it was. I'm the organizer, so I'm sure of it." "Oh, I see. If it had been the middle school reunion, you might have run into your old girlfriend, huh?" There was another loud thud. "Oh dear, again, Catherine? What happened this time?" "Ouch. I'm sorry, I hit my head this time. Maybe I'm just naturally clumsy." "Mom, you're saying weird things. My ex-girlfriend is a mother of 2 kids now. Why are you still bringing that up?" "Oh, is that so? Sorry about that." Catherine seemed to react strongly every time the word reunion was mentioned. Observing her behavior, it was clear she was hiding something. Eventually, the renovation work was completed. The exterior of the house had been redone. with the walls replaced and the roof changed from tiles to shingles. At a glance, it looked like a brand new house. The front door was changed from a heavy sliding door to a light one. Inside the house, there was no trace of its former appearance. The bathroom was larger and more modern, and the biggest change was the kitchen. It now had an IH stove and a dishwasher. Catherine was thrilled with the results. I assumed that the remaining room on the first floor would be my room. The scent of the new room was comforting. Next, we started moving in the items we had stored in a warehouse. I also began packing up my apartment in preparation for the move. I said goodbye to my neighbors, Kate and Jenny. Jenny cried, but when I told her she could visit me with her mom, she managed a small smile. Then, on Sunday, before the movers arrived, we cleaned each room and discussed where to place the furniture and appliances. Tom and Catherine were only concerned with their own things, completely ignoring mine. Feeling utterly overlooked, I finally raised my voice. "Hey! Where am I supposed to put my things?" Finally noticing me, they both came over. "Oh, Emily, this isn't your room," Catherine said. "What? But I thought I was going to live on the first floor. Am I getting a room upstairs?" "I prefer this little room." "What are you talking about? You're not getting any room. The room we prepared for you is over there." Catherine pointed toward the mysterious small room. "What? Isn't that a storage space?" "Humph, you should be grateful we even prepared a room for you." "That's your room, Emily. It's a perfect size, you can lie down in there." "What are you saying? I can't live in a storage room like that." I was so upset that I yelled at Catherine. "Tom, are you really going to shut me away in that small room?" "Yeah, I guess that's how it'll be," Tom replied, looking apologetic. "So, this was your plan all along. Is it a problem? If you don't like it, you can leave. If living together doesn't suit you, then that's fine, right?" Catherine laughed loudly. Tom remained silent, looking down. Just then, a voice came from the entrance. Right on time. "Excuse me. I'm Attorney Smith. Is Emily home?" I glanced at the clock. It was exactly the time we had agreed on. "It's been a while. I was greatly indebted to your late husband. I'm still in the middle of moving, so things are a bit chaotic. But I appreciate your guidance." "Well then, since everyone is here, shall we begin?" "Yes, please come to this room." As I led Mr. Smith and his assistant into the Japanese-style room, Catherine and Tom looked around, clearly confused by the situation. Mr. Smith began his explanation. "First, regarding your son's debt, the loan, I'm pleased to inform you that the third-party payment has been successfully completed. Here are the documents." In other words, I, as a third party, had paid off my son's debt on his behalf. "What is this?" "Mom, how did you know about this?" "Well, I looked into a few things and discovered that Catherine's parents had paid off the debt from your failed investment. So, I went ahead and settled it myself." Catherine's parents were quite relieved. "Mom, you knew about this." "Yes, and now you don't have to hold back with Catherine anymore. Speak your mind." "Mom, I'm sorry." "Thank you. We can talk about that later. That was just a side issue. Now, let's get to the main issue." "The main issue?" Tom looked puzzled. By now, Catherine was already sweating profusely. "Emily, I am the victim here. My husband lost money in an investment and used up our family's savings. So my parents had to cover the debt. She began defending herself before anything had been said. And that's how you've been controlling Tom, right? Sure, my son is at fault, but what you've been doing is much worse, isn't it? What do you mean? I haven't done anything wrong. She said this while her face turned pale. Mr. Smith continued speaking. Let's get to the main point. Catherine, you've been engaging in an affair with your ex-boyfriend from high school. In plain terms, you've been cheating. What? Tom looked shocked and stared at Catherine. No, it wasn't serious, just a fling. The only person I love is my husband, truly. Well, we're just presenting the objective facts. Even if you say you love your husband, that doesn't change the reality of the situation. We're simply reporting the findings of our investigation. With that, Mr. Smith presented several photographs and played audio from a recorder. My husband is just an ATM. I'm only using him until I can be with you. I wondered where they recorded this. Their investigating skills are impressive. And that was just the beginning of the recordings. I tricked that fool and his parents into renovating their house. First, I'll kick out the mother, then have a friend seduce the husband, claim he cheated, and divorce him. That way, I'll get alimony and take the house as compensation for my parents' debt. Then, I'll marry you. I'm so clever, aren't I? You're still as wicked as ever. I heard you'd changed a lot. I'm just that crazy about you. I want us to be together soon. There was more, but this was more than enough. The photo evidence clearly showed the two of them entering a hotel, hugging in the shadow of a car, and engaging in inappropriate behavior inside and outside the hotel. Catherine was now slumped over, looking utterly defeated. With so much evidence against her, there was no room for denial. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused. I apologized to him, admiring the work of the private investigator and Mr. Smith. It was no trouble at all. Moving forward, if your son wishes, we can handle the divorce paperwork, alimony, and division of assets. Thank you for your hard work. Having lost all standing, Catherine fled the house, leaving my son behind. He was visibly shaken, but it was clear that their marriage couldn't continue. He immediately requested that the divorce proceedings begin. Later, I received a call from the attorney's office, informing me that a meeting was arranged with Catherine, her parents, her affair partner, and his wife. Turns out Catherine and that man used to date. And when they saw each other at the high school reunion, they remembered the good old days. What started as a one-night mistake spiraled out of control when he was transferred back to the area, and they couldn't pull themselves out of it. The man was also married with children, but this affair led to his divorce. My son's divorce was finalized as well, and he received a substantial amount of alimony. Catherine's parents covered the alimony up front, and Catherine and the man were to repay them as a debt. Catherine was disowned by her parents, as was her affair partner. The two of them moved to a small inn in the countryside, where they live and work to pay off their debt, barely making ends meet. A while later, Kate Swift, who had lived next door to me in the apartment, came to visit with Jenny. Jenny's kindergarten was nearby, and they stopped by on their way home. Since Jenny had grown attached to Tom, I told them they were always welcome to visit. As they continued to visit, Kate and my son grew closer. And eventually, they decided to get married. Life can be full of surprises. Now, my son has a new wife and an instant elementary school-aged daughter. Jenny calls my son Dad and calls me Grandma. And I cherish her as if she were my own granddaughter. My son and his new wife are living happily together. And I am now enjoying a very happy time. And so, everything ended well, and that's all that matters. I'm going to remarry my 18-year-old girlfriend. You're in the way, so disappear. What? So, you want a divorce, is that it? Exactly. What is that? Don't joke about things like that. You guys have always treated me carelessly, haven't you? It's too late to get flustered after I've brought up divorce. What? I'm not flustered at all. I'm actually mad that you brought up divorce to Mom first. Don't raise your voice so much. How can you stay so calm? I'm angry too. Got it. Shall we get divorced then? Oh, you'll grant me a divorce? That makes things easier. What? Mom? Is that okay? After years of juggling child-rearing, shuttling kids to extracurricular activities, and caring for my father-in-law, my husband suddenly proposed a divorce. When I casually agreed to the divorce and mentioned it too lightly, my eldest daughter shouted in surprise. Ethan was alone, celebrating with a fist pump. My eldest daughter seemed not to understand my words, but this is fine. If everything goes as I expect, everything should resolve smoothly. In reality, a month after I blocked his calls, my ex-husband came to our house. I am a 37-year-old part-time worker. I married Ethan, who is 2 years older than me, when I was 24 due to a shotgun wedding, and we were blessed with 2 children after the marriage. Our daughter Kristen, who turns 13 this year, has started middle school, and our son Ted has turned 6 and started elementary school. With the children reaching middle and elementary school ages, childcare should have become a bit easier, but the birth of our second son, Sean, 2 years ago has kept us in a constant state of busyness. However, I have strong support, so I can manage household chores, childcare, and work. Ted. You need your gym bag today, right? Prepare it yourself. I'll prepare it after breakfast. That's what you said last week, but you forgot it, didn't you? Prepare it first. Seeing me always busy, my eldest daughter naturally started to support me. She is already showing the temperament of a tough mother, even more maternal than I am. I rely on my eldest daughter's help with childcare, which honestly helps a lot. However, I also feel pathetic having to rely on a child for help with childcare. Still, I depend on my eldest daughter because I am also caring for George, my father-in-law. Megan, I'm sorry, but I need to go to the toilet. Can you take me? Understood. Let's get up slowly then. I'm always sorry about this. My father-in-law always looks apologetic towards me. However, I have never considered him a burden. Though he requires care, he is only weak in the legs and can manage daily activities with some support. Thus, it's more about support than care, really. George is 70, and my mother-in-law Dorothy is 68. Since my mother-in-law alone can't fully support him, our family has been living with my in-laws for about 3 years now. Living with my in-laws is often fraught with trouble, but fortunately, it hasn't involved me much. Welcome home, thanks for the hard work, Bert. Lunch is ready, you'll eat, right? Thank you. I appreciate it, as always. We're the ones being helped here, don't worry about it. Oh, by the way, I fixed a button on Ted's uniform that had come off. I did it without asking, I hope that was okay? You fixed it? That's very helpful, thank you. My mother-in-law supports us with housework and childcare. Also, my father-in-law entertains my eldest son when he returns from school. When I was pregnant with my second son, they helped me a lot. Though we came to my in-laws to support them, it feels like the roles have completely reversed. Therefore, I feel indebted to my in-laws, but they always say not to worry about it. I'm always causing trouble, I know. Living with your husband's parents must be tough, but you accepted us. I'm truly grateful. That's right. I couldn't support him alone. Besides, we're happy to live with our grandchildren. You might think we're helping you with housework and childcare, but that's not it. We do it because we enjoy it, and it brings us joy. After 3 years of living with my in-laws, I've been leading a busy yet enjoyable life. However, there is one thing I'm concerned about. In these 3 years, my husband's attitude has gradually changed. One morning, it was a usual scene. You didn't hand over the notice from yesterday, did you? I always tell you to make sure to hand it over. I just forgot yesterday. Megan. I'm sorry, but could you buy some sewing thread at the dollar store on your way back from work today? Understood. Could you also buy a new nail clipper? The one we're using now is getting dull. This ordinary scene seems to annoy my husband. You have it good, getting help with the housework and childcare. How can you say that? You don't help, so you wouldn't know, but household chores and childcare are tough. Plus, I even have to go to work. Work. It's just an easy part-time job, isn't it? What's the matter with you? Did something bad happen at work? What? Dad, are you taking it out on us? It's not like that. Some people handle housework, childcare, and work all by themselves, so I just mean don't be too spoiled. After placing his toast back on the plate, my husband left for work. I get complaints from my husband. He seems displeased that I receive help from my eldest daughter and my in-laws. However, since my eldest daughter and in-laws are on my side, my husband often retreats in a bad mood. Feeling uncomfortable without allies, he has started to reduce his time at home. Welcome home. You're late again today. What about dinner? I don't need it. I'm just going to take a shower and go to sleep. My husband comes home late and has started to go out alone on weekends. He sulks because he doesn't have the family's support, although it's his own attitude that causes this, making it feel like a fourth child has emerged. But my husband is almost 40, an adult, and a father. I can't deal with him sulking like a child forever. Hey, even if you don't help with the housework, could you at least help a little with the childcare? Ask your mom and them for that. Kristen has started going to cram school, right? I have to pick her up because she gets home late. And Ted has joined a soccer club, hasn't he? Sometimes on weekends, I have to take him a bit far for practice games. I can't really ask your mother to do the driving, can I? I'm not doing any driving around. Why should I have to drive the kids around at night or on weekends when I'm tired from work? You have a part-time job and you can drive, so you should do it. If I take the kids to and from their activities, I won't be able to do anything at home. I'll have to rely even more on your parents. I understand you're tired from work, but please, help a little. You said you'd help when the kids started their activities, didn't you? I said I'd pay for it. If you can't drive them, then make them quit their activities. My husband's dissatisfaction is directed not only at me, but also at the children who don't take his side. It seems the biggest child of all requires the most attention. Since I can't make the children quit their activities, I decided to handle their transportation myself. But I can't rely on my in-laws any more than I already do. So, I try to keep from adding to their burden as much as possible. However, the driving, taking 1 to 2 hours each time, inevitably cuts into the efficiency of my housework and childcare. To make up for the lost efficiency, I've started waking up early and cutting back on sleep to get housework and childcare done. I use every spare moment for housework and childcare. Exhausted from non-stop housework and childcare, I also go to my part-time job and continue to support my father-in-law. This unsustainable effort can't continue forever. Having reached my limit just on grit, I consulted my husband again, but he flatly refused, saying, "What? I told you I wouldn't do the driving." So, I continue to transport the children, hiding my fatigue. I'm home. Welcome back. Well done, Megan. Are you okay? Isn't the driving tough? I'm fine. I'll get dinner ready. I force a smile to hide my fatigue. I can't rely on my in-laws any more than I already do. I know I should openly rely on my in-laws, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Unfortunately, bad things seem to happen one after another. My father-in-law suddenly passed away from acute myocardial infarction. At the hospital, my daughter, my mother-in-law, and I cried as we looked at my father-in-law, who had passed away in his sleep. My son was teary-eyed and looked down in silence. It's understandable that 2-year-old Sean doesn't grasp the situation and looks confused. However, why is my husband grinning? Well, Dad was over 70, so it can't be helped, right? No more needing to help with the toilet or the bath. Let's try to think positively. My husband is not the kind of person who makes jokes to cheer us up. He probably means what he said. Even if it were a joke, it would be in extremely poor taste. But right now, sadness overwhelmingly outweighs anger. So, we ignored my husband and mourned the loss of my father-in-law. We better get started on the funeral arrangements. Our reaction probably wasn't what he had hoped for. He left the hospital room with a dismissive remark, increasing the emotional distance between us and him. I'll be late again today, so I don't need dinner. 2 years after my father-in-law's death, my husband continues to do as he pleases, still not helping with housework or childcare, and I'm still doing the driving for our 2 children and now also for Sean to kindergarten. Moreover, he comes home later than before, sometimes doesn't return on weekends, and has become even more reckless with money. Hey! Did you use the household money again? So what? Most of that money is what I earned, isn't it? We have 3 kids, you know? We still need a lot of money, so stop wasting it. Shut up. You should just keep quiet and take care of the house. Our relationship had already cooled off. But we haven't divorced yet, partly because of the children, but also because I'm worried about my mother-in-law. I'm sorry that Ethan keeps causing trouble. You can dump him anytime, you know? My mother-in-law sometimes tells me it's okay to divorce, but if we were to divorce, my husband and mother-in-law would be left alone. I'm worried about leaving my kindly mother-in-law alone with such a husband. So, whenever she brings up divorce, I just laugh it off. What are you saying? Even if my relationship with my husband has cooled, having 3 adorable children and a kind mother-in-law is enough for me. However, the time to end such a life has come. My mother-in-law has suffered a stroke. Though her life was saved, my mother-in-law developed cognitive impairment as a result of her condition. The view from that mountain is really beautiful. I really love that view. I went there last week. Wow, really? I'd like to see that view from the mountain someday too. My eldest daughter listens to her grandmother with a smile. However, my mother-in-law did not go to the mountain last week. Due to her cognitive impairment from the stroke, she also has memory issues and talks about trips from years ago as if they happened recently. Moreover, she repeats the same story multiple times. My eldest daughter continues to listen with a smile until my mother-in-law is satisfied. Did Mom finish her meal? It took a long time today. Yeah. But she wasn't slow eating, she was just caught up in her stories. I see. That's a sign she's still energetic. We need to keep her healthy. Right. But I'm a bit worried. Earlier, she reached out her hand to a completely different place from her spoon. To keep her healthy, we need to cover for her like that. I was worried whether I could provide enough support when my mother-in-law fell, but my eldest daughter helps with the caregiving and the household chores, so we're managing. Seeing how my daughter supports me, my eldest son has also started to take care of his younger brother. I've come to realize that this is what it means to support each other as a family. It's just unfortunate that my husband's cooperation isn't part of this. Why doesn't that guy help with anything around the house? Even Ted is looking after Sean. Don't call your father that guy. Father? Can someone like him even be called a father? It's no wonder my eldest daughter is exasperated with her husband. Well, I think it's much better than being bothered by him. My husband still comes home late and goes out on weekends. It's a problem that he spends money, but I'm not interested in what he does outside. So, it's better for me if he just stays uninvolved. Thinking this, I had been ignoring my husband, but about 6 months after my mother-in-law's fall, my husband dropped a huge bombshell on our family. I'm going to remarry my 18-year-old girlfriend. You're in the way, so disappear. What? My husband, returning home after the kids had gone to bed, suddenly confronted me with a divorce. I was speechless, my mind went blank. Though I've been managing household chores, childcare, and work with some help since coming to live with my in-laws. I also took care of my father-in-law, and now I'm caring for my mother-in-law. Do I really have to be confronted with a divorce from a husband who hasn't helped with the house or his parents at all? And to remarry an 18-year-old? No matter how hard I try, I can't understand what my husband is saying. So, you want a divorce, is that it? Exactly. What is that? Don't joke about things like that. I thought she was asleep, but my eldest daughter had been awake. She couldn't stand our conversation and burst in. You guys have always treated me carelessly, haven't you? It's too late to get flustered after I've brought up divorce. What? I'm not flustered at all. I'm actually mad that you brought up divorce to Mom first. My eldest daughter's anger was so strong, I couldn't even talk to my husband. It's nice that she's angry for me, but this could wake up my sons. Kristen, don't raise your voice so much. How can you stay so calm? I'm angry too. First, let your father and I talk, so go back to your room. No. I'm staying here. It seemed my eldest daughter had no intention of leaving the room. She quieted down but crossed her arms and continued to glare at her father without moving. It's not ideal to discuss divorce in front of the kids, but it can't be helped. So, you've been coming home late and going out on weekends for that girlfriend, huh? Yes. We've been together for about a year now. She's a girl who works part-time at my regular pub. Unlike you, she's friendly and kind. That should be called an affair, not a relationship, but that's not the point I want to emphasize. She's still 18, right? Are her parents okay with this? Her parents are strongly opposed. If she marries me, they're going to disown her. How can you marry without her parents' consent? We don't need her parents' consent. We can get married. That's why we've been patiently dating this past year. It's not about the law, but about human connections and decency. I was at a loss, unable to understand my husband. Looking at my daughter's face, she had an expression of complete disbelief. So, her parents don't agree, but you've confirmed her feelings, right? Yes, of course. We love each other. I didn't need to hear that. I don't want her to say too much in front of my daughter. At this point, I don't care about the divorce or the affair. What worries me is my mother-in-law after the divorce. I looked at a photo of my mother-in-law on a shelf in the corner of the room. It was taken when she was healthy, smiling on a mountain hike. Looking at my mother-in-law's smiling face, I remembered she had always said I could leave my husband anytime. Understood. So, shall we get divorced? Oh, you'll grant me a divorce? That makes things easier. What? Mom? Is that okay? My casual agreement to the divorce and my light mention of it shocked my eldest daughter. Ethan was alone, celebrating with a fist pump. I can't accept this. This is fine. What's fine? This is fine. I repeated the same words, trying to communicate with my eyes to my eldest daughter that I wasn't just accepting the divorce. It seemed my feelings had reached her, who had been with me as family. However, my husband, who hadn't been part of us as a family, failed to notice the silent conversation between my daughter and me. If everything goes as I expect, everything should work out smoothly. The decision to divorce is made, but there are children involved, and we need to discuss the details. Therefore, I cannot leave the house immediately. Of course, it's okay for me to take the children, right? Obviously. Better take them away. They're just a nuisance. Understood. But it's impossible to just take the children and leave immediately, so wait a bit. Then, you can stay here until you find a place to move. I'll be spending time with my girlfriend. But get out in 2 weeks. I can't have you sticking around forever. As my husband left the house happily, my eldest daughter looked at me anxiously. It's okay. Do you think a person like that can be happy? Surely, your grandfather in heaven will punish him. I tried to alleviate my daughter's anxiety with a smile. Seeing me smile, she too smiled back, reassured. The next day, I reported the divorce to my mother-in-law. Mother, I'm sorry. I've decided to get a divorce. It's okay. I'm sorry for all the trouble up to now. Though the conversation went on, my mother-in-law probably didn't fully grasp its meaning. Yet, her words were comforting to me. 2 weeks later, I left the house with my 3 children. The place we moved to wasn't far from my in-laws. This was to avoid changing the children's schools and to continue my part-time job, but there was another reason as well. The divorce proceeded smoothly as I didn't press the issue of the affair. I thought it more important to quickly sever ties with my husband and ensure a smooth transition to receiving child support, rather than arguing about compensation. However, in return for not fussing about the affair, I took most of our savings and the car. My ex-husband, eager to start his life with his 18-year-old new wife, accepted these terms without fully understanding how much it would cost him later. Mom, you think about 2 months? I think about 1 month. You think he lacks that much persistence? Surely he can last about 2 months, right? I explained to my daughter why I divorced her father so easily. Satisfied with my explanation, she looked forward to that time. A month after the divorce, my ex-husband called my smartphone. See, just about a month. Not yet. I don't think he's been pushed to his limit yet. Let's wait and see. After that, my ex-husband started bombarding me with calls. At night, he would call every 10 minutes. It became impossible to relax at home, so I blocked his number. Since I had told him where we lived, there wouldn't be a problem if he couldn't reach me by phone. When he was driven to his limit, he would surely come to the house. A month after blocking him, my ex-husband finally showed up at our house. Please. Come back. I was wrong. Through the intercom, my husband pleaded loudly for help. It was night, and to avoid bad rumors in the neighborhood, I reluctantly let him into the house to talk. I sent the younger son to another room with the eldest, and I listened to my ex-husband's story with my daughter. Well, it was probably just as I had expected. I have an idea of what happened, but could you explain it anyway? After you guys left, I started living with my remarriage partner and my mom, just the 3 of us at her home. But the new wife couldn't handle taking care of mom and gave up, right? Yes. I didn't think she'd give up so easily, even middle schooler Kristen could do it. You know. It's obvious, isn't it? Taking care of parents isn't about persistence. Kristen could take care of mom because we've always lived as a family. I could take care of your parents because they were kind to me and felt like my real parents. Did you really think that just getting married and saying, "This is your mother-in-law, take care of her," would work? That is. You probably pushed all the housework onto her too, right? Anyone would hate that. Especially an 18-year-old. So? Did you divorce her already? No, we hadn't registered the marriage yet, we were planning to on our anniversary. Lucky for her, then. She dumped you easily, huh? I've been there, and I know that young women can find older men attractive. I bet the 18-year-old new wife was serious about marrying my ex-husband. Otherwise, she wouldn't have fought her parents' opposition and moved in with my in-laws. She must have been informed about my mother-in-law beforehand. However, the reality of married life and caregiving must have been much harder than she imagined. For an 18-year-old with little life experience, it would be tough to overcome such trials. If they were to make their married life successful, my ex-husband's support would have been crucial, but he helped with nothing. Moreover, it's dubious whether he even explained the situation adequately or prepared her appropriately. But she cut ties with her parents to marry you, right? How are you planning to take responsibility? Her parents said they'd cut ties, but they didn't in the end. Now she's being sheltered by them. Sheltered? What do you mean? Did you? Of course, I went after her when she left the house. But her parents said, "Our daughter is scared, so don't come anymore." This is a marital issue. It's natural for us to discuss it together. Yet, they say if I persist, they'll consult a lawyer. A 40-year-old man pressuring an 18-year-old girl is scary enough. If a daughter runs back home from a man, it's natural for parents to protect her. Moreover, the mention of a lawyer instead of the police shows how serious her parents are. The police cannot act without evidence of harm, but involving a lawyer might make it easier for them to intervene, and even if the police do not act, a civil lawsuit might be possible. Moreover, although people may speak of cutting ties, family bonds are not so easily severed. I cannot imagine ever cutting ties with my children, no matter what they do. However, my ex-husband seems to be someone who can imagine cutting ties with his children. I don't care about you and your new wife anymore. But you came here alone, is Grandma okay? Mom's already asleep, so she's fine. I've also installed a monitoring camera. Grandma is alone at home? I can't believe it. Give me the keys now. My eldest daughter snatched the keys from my ex-husband and rushed to our mother-in-law's place without stopping. What are you thinking? I'm at my limit. Whatever I do, you ask about Megan? About Kristen? About Ted and Sean? Suddenly she starts saying things that make no sense. My wife ran away, and I can't take care of Mom alone anymore. Please, come back. The reason Mom doesn't rely on you and calls our names instead, is it because you couldn't be the family she needed? Being related by blood doesn't make you family. If you were really family, you'd understand what Mom wants to say. Kristen and I have never thought Mom was saying nonsense. Realizing how foolish his actions had been, my ex-husband hung his head and fell silent. If my ex-husband has come to regret his past actions, that's an ideal turn of events for me. I handed him a brochure I had prepared. I have no intention of remarrying you. But you can't take care of Mom, can you? How about we get her into a care facility? I suggested to my ex-husband that we place our mother-in-law in a nearby care facility. It would be much safer for her to be there than with my incapable ex-husband. Additionally, visiting her at the facility would allow us to see her without having to meet my ex-husband. The brochure I handed to my ex-husband was for a facility near our house. We hadn't moved too far away after leaving the marital home, partly for this reason. Okay. I'll do that. With this, I achieved my goal. I managed to divorce and ensure that my children and I could see my mother-in-law whenever we wanted. Shall we head to your house then? What does that mean? My ex-husband, mistakenly thinking that his remorse and regret had moved me, hoped for a positive response. Don't misunderstand. I'm going to pick up Kristen. She rushed out suddenly earlier, and since it's night, even if it's close by, it's natural for me to go pick up our child, right? Realizing he had been mistaken, my ex-husband's shoulders fell. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding. It had been 2 months since we last visited the family home, but I didn't meet with my mother-in-law. I simply picked up my eldest daughter and returned home. We can meet with my mother-in-law anytime now, so hearing from my daughter was enough for now. Grandma said she went to the mountain yesterday too. She's still so lively, huh? It's not fair that only sister gets to see Grandma. I wanted to see Grandma too. It's late now, so be patient. We'll be able to see Grandma from now on. It looks like your plan worked, didn't it? Yes, this way I managed to separate that man from Grandma. As I drove home, thinking about being able to meet Grandma again made me happy, and I found myself humming a tune. Later, my mother-in-law was admitted to the care facility. Mother, how are you feeling? Any changes? Yes, I've been feeling quite well recently. According to the staff at the facility, my mother-in-law had been somber and quiet right after admission. However, as my children and I began visiting, her mood lightened and she started talking more. With my mother-in-law in the facility, my ex-husband was left living alone at the family home. It seems he finally gave up on the new wife after her parents threatened to consult a lawyer. I'm just relieved he didn't become a stalker. However, the girl must have been quite frightened. While I understand his desire not to lose a young wife, as an adult, he should have known when to step back. Later, I learned that around the time my ex-husband started complaining and behaving strangely, he had made a major mistake at work. It was a big enough blunder to push him into a less influential position at his company. Feeling ostracized at work while I managed home affairs smoothly with family support apparently didn't sit well with him. As he began to complain, finding no allies at home either, he ended up relying on a teenager. Being relied upon by a younger person probably made him feel validated. Such childish reasons indeed. Also, it seems that not only his wife but also his mother had forsaken him. Nice to meet you. It's a lovely day, isn't it? Despite clearly remembering us, it seems my mother-in-law has forgotten that my ex-husband is her son. His childlike behavior led to our divorce and ultimately left him truly alone. Now alone, my ex-husband's mental state worsened, and he continued to make mistakes at work. One mistake led to another, resulting in demotion and pay cuts. Given his mental state, he probably should take a break from work, but he can't afford to. Since I took most of our savings in exchange for not fussing about the affair during our divorce, he's left without much money. Still, he needs to work to pay the child support for our 3 kids and the care facility fees for my mother-in-law. Being without support is a tough situation. To support the 3 kids, I found a job. Sean is still small, but Kristen and Ted help look after him. Having real support is truly reassuring.